I would like to call the Committee of the Whole meeting of July 21, 2025 to order. Good evening, everyone. My name is Anna Murray. I am a counselor and chair of the Planning and Economic Development Committee. I would like to begin by reading a safety notice. In the event of an emergency, please evacuate council chambers to the nearest exit through the chamber doors and obey all instructions given, and if assistance is required, please see the Legislative Committee Coordinator, which is right, she is right over here. Once you have evacuated the building, please gather in the front parking lot outside of Town Hall. Please ensure that your cell phone is on silent or turned off. The Town of Lincoln Committee of the Whole meetings are posted on our YouTube channel, and closed captioning is available on all of our videos by selecting the closed captioning button on the bottom right of the video. Item number 2 on our agenda is roll call. Members of committee are in attendance, in person and remotely, with regrets from Councillor Pachariba and Councillor Russell. Councillor Ranjima is currently scheduled to attend but has not yet joined the meeting. We have staff in attendance in person and remotely. Are there any declarations of interest? Seeing none, we'll move on to number 4, which is the confirmation of agenda. Do members have any amendments to the order of the agenda? And again, seeing none, we'll move on to item number 5, which is statutory public meetings. We have no statutory public meetings this evening. On to the consent agenda. We are now considering the consent agenda inclusive of the Heritage Advisory Committee minutes of May 8, 2025. Would any members of committee like to remove an item from the consent agenda to discuss? All right, seeing none, I'm just going to make a note that Councillor Ranjima has joined us now. So there being no further discussion, I have a motion moved by Councillor Timmers that all items listed under the heading of consent agenda from Monday, July 21, 2025 be adopted as recommended. Heritage Advisory Committee minutes of May 8, 2025. I will now ask our Legislative Committee Coordinator to open that vote. Deanna?
Thank you, Chair. That vote is now open. Councillor Ranjima, could I get your vote verbally, please?
In favor, thank you.
In favor, thank you. And the vote is closed, and that carries. Thank you.
Thank you. We are now going to move on to the Planning and Economic Development agenda. Item 7.1 is delegations. We have 2 delegations for the Planning and Economic Development Committee agenda. Please note that delegations have a maximum of 5 minutes to speak. Our first delegation for this evening is Noel Walker, Chair of the Housing Select Committee, regarding item 7.2.1 PD-16-25, Lincoln Housing Needs Demand Study Findings and Proposed Affordable Housing Targets. Noel, please come forward.
Good evening, Mayor Easton, council members, staff, and neighbors. Thank you for the opportunity to speak with you this evening on behalf of the Housing Select Committee. When we talk about affordable housing, it is easy to think that this is purely a social justice issue, and yes, it is about equity and care of our neighbors, but it's also much more than that. Affordable housing is an economic issue. It is a generational issue. And it is a community sustainability issue. Let me begin with a question. What kind of community do we want Lincoln to be in, say, 10, 20, or even 30 years? Now, I know that this is a question that the Council has addressed in the 2022 to 2026 Strategic Plan, specifically in Section 3.5, which addresses the Council's desires to provide balanced and diversified housing options. If we want Lincoln to be a place where our kids can afford to live, then we must act now. Many of us raised our families here. Our kids grew up in our parks. They attended our schools. They volunteered in our churches, skated on our rinks, played for the Stingers or the Lincoln Blades. But today, many of those same kids who are now young adults simply can't afford to live here. When our kids can't afford to live in the town where they grew up, we don't just lose residents, we lose volunteers. We lose future coaches, choir members, teachers, and young families who would otherwise be the next generation of community builders. Affordable housing ensures that the people who have deep roots here can actually stay here, still connected to the support systems and the values that shape them, and continue to give back to this community. Secondly, our local businesses, especially those in service and retail and agriculture, rely on employees that often earn near or at the minimum wage. But those workers need a place to live. If there are no affordable rentals or ownership options in the town of Lincoln, they will leave and they will find employment and housing elsewhere. Young adults in the church that I serve in as a minister right now can't afford to live in our town. Rather than living here in town and working in a fast food restaurant down by the highway, they move to Welland and they work there instead. We simply can't assume that someone would commute 30 minutes to then work here in Beamsville just because they can find a cheaper place to live somewhere else. The math just doesn't work. If we want our restaurants and our shops and our farms and small businesses to survive and thrive, we must make sure that people who work in them can afford to live here. Affordable housing isn't charity. It's strategic investment in the infrastructure of a healthy local economy. Now, to talk about what affordable housing actually means, it's more than just one thing. We often talk about it on a spectrum. On the one end, you've got subsidized housing and rent geared to income units, but on the other side of the spectrum, you've got affordable market rentals. You've got entry-level ownership homes, co-op housing, secondary suites, and purpose-built rentals. Stock that makes up a variety of housing types for a variety of income levels. If we want to create a resilient and inclusive community, we need housing at every point along the spectrum, not just million-dollar homes on the one side, but then also not just subsidized units on the other. We need everything in between. Which brings me to the final point I have tonight, the future of housing development in Lincoln. One of the most significant developments on the horizon is the land that's currently occupied by Beamsville District Secondary School. That property represents a once-in-a-generation opportunity. It's centrally located, it's walkable, close to transit and parks and amenities. And now is the time for the council to speak up with a clear and public commitment to affordable housing. We urge council to commit to the inclusion of a significant portion of this future development to affordable housing in the redevelopment of the BDSS site, and to make that commitment publicly and clearly and early in the planning stages, because if we don't plan for affordability from the beginning, we don't get to it in the end. In closing, affordable housing is not somebody else's problem, and it's not even a Lincoln problem. More importantly, it's a Lincoln opportunity, an opportunity to invest strategically and create a town where people of all income levels can live and work and thrive together. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much, Mr. Walker. Do members of committee have questions for our delegation? Thank you very much. Mr. Mikulik, please go ahead. Councilor Mikulik.
It's all right. Thank you. Through you to Noel. Thank you for your presentation and all you do on the committee. Question I have when I was listening to your, your words. What was it? You said significant portion of the BDSS site. I'm 100% in favor of apportioning portion of that site to affordable or attainable housing, housing for all. But what, like, when you say the word significant, can you define to me what amount or what percentage of land would be significant?
I think in the last few years, we've been exploring different possibilities here in the town of Lincoln. And so one of the things a few years ago we considered were small tiny homes as a housing solution. And one of the things that we discovered is by the time you get land serviced and you get all the ducks lined up for this one tiny home, it's a massive investment for a very small return. And so we've quickly learned that what we're looking for is developable properties that would have room for 4-story units, 5-story units, 6-story units that would provide, like I say, a spectrum of housing options. And so when I say, again, you know better than I the kind of or the footprint that a large building would take.
Mm-hmm.
But a portion of that land that would be big enough for multiple units in a unit that would provide the best bang for the buck kind of thing, with a small space, able to address a wide variety of housing needs in one facility.
Okay, so that's great. That's good. That's a great answer, because you're basically saying, like, when you say a significant, it can be up, it can be, it doesn't necessarily have to be X number of acres or an X number of square footage.
Yes.
It can be varying stock, okay, or varying heights and density. Okay, perfect. Thank you for that.
Councillor Timmers, please go ahead.
Thank you very much. I just want to thank you for being here tonight, Noel, and you did a very good job, and I appreciate what your messages were. It kind of got clarified about the significant portion, because I think people maybe thought, oh, what does he mean by that, out of the 16 acres? But
Yeah.
I think you've clarified we're looking for enough for a building.
Yeah.
Correct?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Councillor Brunet, please go ahead.
Thank you, Chair Murray. To Noel, thanks for being here. I don't think anybody can argue any of the points that you made. I mean, you spoke very articulately, and we all probably have a story in our families or in our close circles. With young adults that went off and now are back living in our basement and cannot afford to buy a house, and we want to keep them in our community. I don't think anybody can argue with that. And you bring up the once in a lifetime, the legacy project of BDSS. We can't argue that. We have an application. I'm sure you've heard about it. Hopefully you've been following it on the Housing Select Committee, a property at 5205 at the corner of Lincoln Avenue and King Street. So we have an application, looking to go to a certain height with, as you spoke about, and as members of our Housing Select Committee come back to this council and tell us that you at the Housing Select Committee are a proponent of the, as you put it, the purpose-built rentals. So this is a building, this one particular application is a building with, purpose-built rentals. Unfortunately, the applicant is basically saying, this is a model such that we're looking at rooftop amenities, we're looking at swimming pools, pickleball, underground parking, which costs a lot of money, and therefore the opportunity for affordable housing is probably slim to none. Furthermore, if you get involved in conversations, well, we might be able to do a small percentage, 10%, but for us to do that, we need to remove underground parking, we need to remove green space, we need to remove the swimming pool. And so then, what is the benefit to the community? So I guess through you, Chair, I ask you, Noel, as someone that's, working strongly along with, administration and council to bring something to fruition, what do you think the discussion should be from a council perspective when we don't have the ability to force a proponent to put a certain percentage of affordable housing in a development? So how do you think, from your position, this council should move forward with an application where basically they're saying this model of rental purpose-built doesn't have affordability in it?
Yeah. Through you, Chair, it's a difficult, as I've been on this committee for the last few years, it's been a little learning curve for me, understanding the pressures that all of you and council and staff are under when these applications come, because before I would have thought you have all the power in the world, and then I've of course learned that There's very little that you're able to do at a number of the different stages, lots of options available to developers to get what they want out of the project. What I would suggest is perhaps not groundbreaking, but I think making a connection early with a developer and pitching the idea of putting affordability on the table early in the conversations is perhaps one way to try and get affordability in the conversation later. It seems like once the project is already underway, shoehorning affordability into something that's already drawn up or something that's already rolling, it does appear to be very, very difficult. It sounds like, this is part of the reason why I bring up the legacy project here at BDSS, the Housing Select Committee would like consideration of affordable housing to be there at the start, at the beginning, early on. In fact, part of the process of finding developers is finding ones that have some experience in working in affordable housing. So somehow to get that conversation to happen early is one hopeful way I think we could get that to happen more regularly. Once a project is sort of on the drawing board and being sketched out and modified, it seems like we only lose affordable units through the further review of the process. They never get added.
Thank you, Chair, and I appreciate that response, Noel, and I appreciate everything you're doing. We sat on the Housing Committee together, so I know how long you've been on there. I would just say one point, there is a certain vibe which seems to be percolating in the community right now, at least I'm hearing it, that this council doesn't care about affordable housing. And most of us around this council chamber have sat on the Housing Committee. We have been champions of that. We continue to be champions of that. And I hope we can work together with you and all the residents who are fighting for the same goals that we want. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Brunet. Councillor Timmers, please go ahead.
Thank you, through you to Noel. That was a very good answer to the question. And I just felt that as the vice chair of the committee, I wanted to add some comments as well. Every time these applications do come forward, it's always a struggle. And like you said, it's not there at the beginning, and to try to get it in there, it's just not happening. And that's why we need to have our own purpose-built on, hopefully, the BDSS site that ticks all the boxes with all the amenities, with all the services that we require for the people who are going to live there that need to be able to walk to. So I think, keep hoping these applications are coming forward and that there's going to be something in there, and it doesn't seem to materialize. So I just want to reinforce what the Housing Committee is here tonight to give their input, to ask for the consideration of the BDSS site and with what the vision is that we have in mind. So I just want to reinforce that message. So thank you very much, Noel. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Timmers. Mayor Easton, please go ahead.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Noel, and thank you for the amount of commitment that you've put to this. It's a fairly extensive continuum, and I know that you started out feeling quite inadequate. You're clearly well in control now, and it's really great to see that. The work of the Housing Select Committee has also evolved, and in a very positive and purposeful way itself. What do you consider at the committee when it comes to the types of things that you're talking about now? The idea that we should be spending time with developers early on in the process to ensure that they understand what the expectations are. That, by the way, happens very early on. I sometimes have meetings with the developers. It's almost the first conversation that I have with them. I had a discussion with them about the property at Lincoln Avenue and King Street. Even at the beginning, they weren't really moving in that direction. But as Councillor Brunet says, we also don't have the ability to force them to move in a direction. But let me ask you about something else, because you've been in the game long enough that you know that there are other pressures, and I'm talking about NIMBYism. We lost 8 units in the proposal for at Calvary. And so where do we go as a council? Because clearly now, we're reaching the point where I would say that people are talking about, well, if people are saying that the town isn't interested in affordable housing, they're not paying attention. We have really been struggling. In fact, I'm very interested to know whether these conversations take place at the Housing Select Committee, because people are not showing up to defend the position of council. And I have started to be quite vocal about that. So let me be vocal again this evening, that maybe the Housing Select Committee can also put pressure on us just by supporting us. Do you talk about these things? Because we're not making a great deal of progress.
Yes, we do talk about these things. I mean, we learned through the Hickson Street project, and like you say, losing those units as the vision becomes a little bit more clear as they round down the project. We saw the number of affordable units drop in that case. We do talk about the need for our community to understand the need. And so there's a couple of things that we've observed with that. I know Josh has done some work just with information and sharing things with council to give a broader understanding of the issues that are involved. For example, the project way up on the North Service Road. I don't know a whole lot about that, but I do recall early on, I heard people in town even say, oh, hey, well, why don't we do affordable housing up there? And I think it's a fundamental misunderstanding of what affordable housing is. To have that far out of town, completely unwalkable, not near any amenities. There was a lack of understanding with the person I was talking to about what it really means or what it really requires to have a house. If you're going to live that far from a grocery store, doctor's office, and so on, you've got a car. And the minute you've got a car, we're talking about a whole different socioeconomic status. So getting our community to understand the need and provide perhaps a little bit of grace to newcomers and people that are wanting to make this town home. I think that's something that we need to work on as far as communication with the general public, and I know the other delegation here may address that as well. Just having some community agencies and groups that are talking about this issue and kind of helping us to become aware of the need. I have four boys. They've all worked in fast food restaurants here in Beamsville at some point in their lives. And the only way they were able to keep doing that is because they were living at my house. And so I really feel for employers here in town that need minimum wage job employees. And part of the reason why it's so difficult for them to find people is that who can afford to live here and work there unless they are kids that are living in a home that's already provided for them. So there's more education, I think, is necessary and is helpful.
Okay, well, that is very helpful. And once again, thank you very much for your commitment. And I hope that your plan is to hang in there until we get this resolved. Thanks very much. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much, Mayor Easton, and thank you very much, Mr. Walker. We appreciate you coming out and speaking to us. Our next delegation, here we go, is Dr. Carl Stobbe, Medical Director of Reach Niagara, Regional Essential Access to Connected Healthcare. Dr. Stobbe, please go ahead.
Thank you. Mayor Easton, Chair Murray, members of council, staff, and my fellow residents of Lincoln. I'm here to talk to you about affordable housing in general, but specifically to the housing needs study that staff tabled with the notes of today's meeting. But by way of introduction, for those of you who may not know who I am, I spent 20 years as a family doctor at the Beamsville Medical Center and West Lincoln Memorial Hospital, caring for people in our community. I was one of the small group of doctors that built the Beamsville Medical Center. I spent the next 15 years in leadership roles with McMaster University, all focused on improving the physician supply in Niagara. For the past 6 years, I've worked with Reach Niagara, focused on providing health care for homeless and marginalized people across Niagara region. I've cared for homeless people in shelters, encampments, day programs, food banks. I've treated their physical and mental health needs and their addictions. And I do this work not alone, but with a very committed group of family doctors and specialists. I see people dying at a young age. The average life expectancy of homeless people in Hamilton is 43 years. We haven't studied it in Niagara, but I don't think it's going to be much different. I wonder how many in this room are older than that. I see the number of homeless people increasing, even as those in shelters are housed surprisingly quickly. The number of newly homeless people is rising, the number of homeless shelters increasing, and the number of people sleeping outdoors is also increasing. I see homeless people from the town of Lincoln in shelters and encampments in St. Catharines, Niagara Falls, and Welland. They can't get to their doctor if they're in Beamsville. They can't visit their friends or family. They've lost their social safety net. The reason people are becoming homeless is being unable to afford rent due to low incomes. That's the cause of homelessness. Affordable housing prevents homelessness. I believe we should be doing all we can to reduce the number of people living in unaffordable housing so they can continue to live and work in our community and do not become homeless. The housing needs study prepared by Town of Lincoln staff details the size of the need for affordable housing and a description of 3 different target levels. And the writer indicates that only the high target will actually reduce the need for affordable housing in Lincoln. I urge this council to adopt the high target and further to direct that a strategy and plan be created so that we can all see how to move this forward. We need a target and a plan. If we want to keep people housed in Lincoln, they need to be able to afford housing. If we do not, tents will appear, encampments will grow, and we will face an expensive task similar to other communities in Niagara. In summary, homelessness is caused by a lack of affordable housing. It leads to early death by as much as 30 years, and homelessness is expensive. The solution to homelessness is affordable housing. As councillors in Lincoln, you have the power to choose housing over homelessness. Make the choice that will save lives and save money. And if I can just add to your earlier point, Mayor Easton, I'm wondering if those people that are here in support of the notion of more affordable housing might want to raise their hands so councillors know what kind of support there is for that.
Thank you very much, Dr. Stobie. Do members of committee have questions for our delegation? Councillor Brunet, please go ahead.
Thank you, Dr. Stobie, for being here this evening. You're the expert. You've spent your entire life in this field, so no one can, really go against what you're saying. But I guess I would, just ask, in your professional opinion, dealing with those people, whether it's a mental issue, an addiction problem, they don't have the ability to live in a home, and so they're in encampments. And you're saying, we need to prevent that, and this is the solution. But affordable housing, we're struggling with the definition of even what affordable housing is, attainable housing. We get into these applications and we start talking to the developers about, $1,300 a month, $1,400 a month. You and I and everyone in this room knows that the people that you're talking about can't afford $1,300 or $1,400 a month. So what is that, in your opinion? What is that number? You're asking us to set these targets. What is that number?
Well, in my brief time trying to figure this out, it seems that there's a spectrum, and you've heard that recommendation from the Housing Select Committee. There's a spectrum of housing types, affordability, and supports required. And it seems to me that the first thing is to define a target and then ask for a plan. I don't think that I have a plan. I don't think that any of you necessarily have a plan. I think that's part of the problem moving forward. So you need a strategy and a plan. And I think that you've got the capability within your town staff and committee structure to have that happen. And in fact, for all I know, people may be working on it already, and maybe that's not needed. But I think that, so $1,300 would be affordable to a lot more people than $5,600, right? And it's a start. And to do nothing because of one number of rent isn't good enough, I think that's probably a bit short-sighted. So I think that we need a range of affordable rents and a range of different options for housing. And until a concrete plan is presented to be able to approve or disapprove of it, how can you move forward? But on the other side, how can a plan be created if there's no target? Right? So if you want to see what you're dealing with, and I want to see what the options are, right? But if you want to see what you're dealing with, I think you need a strategy and a plan. And then modify that to your satisfaction.
Yeah, I think, when we have an opportunity to talk to staff on the actual report, a lot of this might be vetted and discussed further, but, I appreciate your response, and I appreciate you being here this evening, Dr. Carl Stobie.
Thank you very much, Councillor Brunet. Councillor Miklick?
Thank you very much, through you to Dr. Stobie. Thank you again for everything you do and your interest and participation with this. Question I have, I'm not familiar with REACH, but an interesting thing I heard, and we talk about affordability, but I don't know if we are assuming that on a single person renting that place or multiple people renting that place. And with Reach Niagara, or any organization, is there a mechanism or a method or a way to possibly connect people to share accommodations, similar to student housing sort of a thing? And the reason why I asked this is because I recently spoke to a senior woman, and her husband had passed away. A couple of years went by. She says she can't afford to live in her condo anymore. She had to sell, and she's chosen to, decided, or had to move with a friend of hers. And the two of them now are living together, sharing the expenses and making life more affordable. Is there a method, or is there a way for people to do that safely within our community or in Niagara at all?
In Niagara, certainly. So we're in the business of healthcare for people that are already homeless. So we're trying to help people, for whom the horse is already out of the barn. But as I mentioned, you would be shocked at how quickly people get rehoused when they enter the homeless system in Niagara. It's impressively fast, and every strategy possible is being used. And sharing rent is a very common one. Usually it's, people try to find the best fit so that it's likely to work and all that sort of thing. But yes, that definitely happens across Niagara. And there are agencies that specialize in housing. We work very closely with them and quite often collaborate with them in order to, we sort of pass off to them when housing is needed by someone. But certainly sharing is one of several strategies, absolutely.
Okay, thank you for that, because I wasn't sure exactly what REACH was involved with and whether they were involved in, I see a Justice, Path, Welcoming Streets, but I wasn't sure if housing was part of the...
We do healthcare for people that are marginalized and challenged in a number of different ways, including homelessness.
But
the Justice one is part of that too.
But I think it's important for people to know that there is that option to share rent, because...
It's happening, but I'm not the expert on that, I'm just the doctor.
To live alone is extremely expensive, so thank you.
Councillor Brunet, please go ahead.
Thank you, Chair Murray. So I had to chime back in, Dr. Stobie. You're speaking so passionately, you're speaking so articulately. It seems like you have so much to add, and I appreciate the fact that you're a resident of Lincoln and you're here in front of this council tonight. But your outreach and the message that you're giving this council, I think about what we have here in Lincoln, and I look at subsidized housing, Niagara Regional Housing. We've got 2 buildings that are 50, 60 years old. We've had no new facilities. Have you in the past been in front of the Niagara Regional Housing Committee? Have you been in front of the Niagara Region Council speaking about some of the things that you're speaking to this council about? Have you, in your position, have you had that opportunity?
I haven't had it, nor have I sought it. I work very closely with homelessness services in Niagara. In my opinion, Niagara is among the forefront, among the leaders in at least in our province, possibly further, in terms of avoiding homelessness, getting people housed quickly. The problem is that the number of people becoming homeless has continued to grow and exceeds the capacity of getting people housed. And the big challenge to getting people housed, as I'm trying to stress, is the lack of affordable housing. So it is difficult. And it's sad to say, but sometimes somebody has to lose their affordable housing in order for someone else to get housed. But that just isn't right.
Yeah, I appreciate that. You might have been here the night. We had, regional representatives here that spoke about a lot of the things you're talking about, encampments and working with, getting these people off the streets with different agencies. So, yeah, we're hearing positive, work that's taking place, in conjunction with agencies like Pathstone, et cetera, et cetera. So, yeah, there's no question work in Niagara is probably one of the leaders in the province, but that doesn't mean that we're hitting our goals and objectives. So thank you very much for that response.
Thank you very much, Dr. Stobie. I'm not seeing any other questions in the queue, so you're welcome to sit down again. There being no further delegations, I have a motion moved by Councillor Reimer that committee receive and file for information the following delegations regarding the Lincoln Housing Needs Demand Study findings and proposed affordable housing targets, PD-16-25. Noel Walker, Chair, Housing Select Committee, and Dr. Carl Stobie, Medical Director of REACH Niagara. I will now ask our Legislative Committee Coordinator to open that vote.
Thank you, Chair. The vote is now open. Councillor Rinjima, may I have your vote?
In favor, thank you.
In favor, thank you. And the vote is closed, and that carries.
Thank you. We will now consider item 7.2.1, Report PD-16-25 regarding Lincoln Housing Needs Demand Study findings and proposed affordable housing targets. The senior planner will now provide a presentation. Mr. Workington, please come forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It's great to be here this evening to just talk about the work that I've been doing with the Housing Select Committee over the past year, as well as some of our members within the community. So just as a brief overview of this presentation, take you through an introduction of what we've been doing over the past year with regard to affordable housing needs and just housing needs in general. We'll look at how we define affordable housing, because it is a large and sometimes ever-changing and confusing topic, even for those who are dealing directly with policy. Then we'll look at current housing needs as well as those in the future, and then just what role does the municipality play in the provision of affordable housing. So over the past year, myself as well as my colleagues in the Housing Select Committee have been undertaking a housing needs study. This housing needs study is really to examine what type of housing needs do we have across the entire spectrum of housing, which I'll talk about a little bit later, and what type of housing do we need. So in terms of the rationale for this study, one of them is required. It's a provincial requirement through the provincial policy statement. It requires that our official plan, which we're currently in the process of updating, have an affordable housing target. So that's at the very minimum why we're undertaking this study. However, one of the things that we really wanted to identify was what are the actual needs in Lincoln? We have the needs from a few years ago that the region provided us, but they're very high level. And if, in my opinion, they kind of glossed over what we're seeing here on the ground. So, we wanted to really understand the need within Lincoln. And I should also note that it was a component of the Housing Select Committee's work plan that's come through council. So it's been in the process. It's just been a matter of trying to get everyone up to speed and trying to collect all the data as well. And that data came through a variety of sources. One of it was the region. We also had StatsCan, special data sets, but we also went out to local providers as well. We went out into the community to see what they are looking at. So that includes the existing nonprofit housing providers here in Lincoln, but also Community Care West Niagara, those who are on the ground doing outreach and seeing necessarily what we're not seeing. So, defining affordable housing. I could spend hours up here going through all the different ones that we have, but for today and for the housing study, we're using the definition that's provided in the provincial policy statement. And the reason for that is when we have planning applications come across our desk and to you, that's the definition that we look at. There are many other types of definitions, but for planning purposes, we use this definition. I should note that while the province does like to use the word attainable housing in many of their speeches and policies and programs, we're still waiting on that definition. So unfortunately, I'm not able to really talk to you about that. One thing I will note is Table 1 kind of shows a high-level overview of the different price points within each income decile. But that's from 2021. We had to use that figure in our housing needs study just because the province hasn't provided us with that detailed information on income. So that's just a heads up of why you might see different income figures. When we talk about finding affordable housing, ownership housing in Lincoln, we're looking at the definition is comprised of two components. And the first component is the cost to income ratio. So essentially it's where the purchase price of a dwelling, it does not exceed 30% of a low or moderate income household's annual income. So for Lincoln, that would be around $96,000 or $96,600. And the second component is the 90% average, basically where the housing price is at least 10% below the average purchase price for a resale unit. Not new, but a resale. It's an important distinction to make. And it's a least expensive option. So if you look at Table 2, you'll see that single detached, semi-detached, and townhouse use the cost to income ratio because it's much less than the 90% resale value. In the condo apartment, or the province doesn't look at what type of condo, but it's assumed that it's a condo apartment. They actually use the 90% average for resale price because it's actually lower than the cost to income ratio. So that's why you see the different measures there of what actually is an affordable ownership price. When we're talking about affordable rental, it's kind of the same thing, just looking at two slightly different aspects. One is that cost to income ratio, so it's 30% of one's income if you're a low or moderate income household. And to define a low and moderate income household, it's that first 6 income deciles that I showed on the first page. Or it's average market rents. So it's housing where the rent is at or below the average market rent of a unit in the municipality. In the case of rental, all of the affordable rents are based on that average market rent figure. And that rent figure is based on the CMHC's rental market housing data with some slight tweaks by the Ministry of Housing. So on the topic of what is affordable housing, well, there's kind of a housing continuum to broadly illustrate the different types of housing that are required in the community for low and moderate income households. So you've probably heard of the housing continuum, but I will spend just a minute or two on it. So housing needs are not linear in nature, and they're not uniform for a community. It depends on what your needs are and what requirements you need in order to live independently or in the community. So for our study, we looked primarily at the safety net, which are shelters, all the way up to affordable rental. That is the type of housing that's really within the purview of the affordable housing spectrum. And it's important to note that different communities have different levels of need. So for example, Lincoln has a much lower need for the safety net and supportive housing than other communities like maybe Port Colborne, Welland, or St. Catharines. But that isn't to say that those needs aren't in the community. And that was one of the intents of the study as well, is to identify what types of housing need do we require in the community. One other thing that I want to mention too is that the housing continuum is not linear. So it's not that you're going from a safety net all the way to market ownership. It could be that, you're living in a house one day that you own, and then a life event happens and you find yourself homeless. So you can go back and forth throughout various different types of housing depending on your life circumstances. When we look at affordable housing need in Lincoln, the housing need, or the greatest housing need, was unaffordable housing, and that was based on the provincial policy statement definitions. So we have in 2021 approximately 1,200 households paying more than 30% of their income on housing. So we have predominantly 845 owners and 400 renters. The problem here is that the actual incident is actually probably much higher than what we're seeing. So one is the census is from 2021, and since then housing prices have continued to grow substantially, even though what we're seeing is prices leveling off and decreasing for some types of ownership housing. It's still increased substantially more than wages did over this period of time. But we're also seeing that food bank usage, particularly among those who are employed, has increased substantially over the past 2 years. One thing that I want to point out is that in order for a single person to afford a one-bedroom rent here in Lincoln, you'd need an average wage of around an hourly wage of $38. So whereas the PPS rent is considered to be affordable for a one-bedroom unit, you'd need around $26. So there's a pretty big substantial difference between the two. When we're looking at who's experiencing unaffordable housing, well, it's primarily 1- and 2-person households in the form of single people, couples without children, and lone parent without children. And that really reflects our aging demographic, not only here in Lincoln, but elsewhere throughout Niagara and Canada as well. And really, these individuals are highest at risk because their incomes are fixed or they're limited in terms of being able to obtain further sources of income. What we're seeing is that renters are generally younger than owners as well. So if you're renting your housing and you have affordability problems, you're generally on the younger side compared to an owner. And that's not uncommon. Typically when you're entering or leaving home, you're renting your dwelling rather than owning it. When we look at the causes of unaffordable housing, there's a few of them, and this is a very high-level overview. One is rapid population growth. Since 2019, we've seen a dramatic increase across the country, and in particular in Ontario. But here in Lincoln, we've experienced rapid population growth over the past 20 years. Generally 1% per annum, whereas Niagara as a whole has really not been anywhere close to that up until really recently. We also have, as I mentioned before, an aging population, people who are entering retirement years and whose incomes are now fixed. Our existing dwelling stock as well is largely comprised of low-density or single and semi-detached dwellings, which, if you go back a few slides and look at how we defined what affordable housing is from an ownership perspective, the most expensive forms of housing are single and semis. We also have few purpose-built rentals because the majority of Lincoln's growth has occurred within the past 20 years, whereas the majority of rental housing was built much earlier than that. And lastly, we've seen rapid shelter cost increases. One part of that is the financialization of housing. So housing is seen not primarily as a form of a dwelling or shelter, but rather as a vehicle for investment, which means that in a globalized world, we now have capital and an interest from all over the world coming into places like Lincoln and other parts of Niagara, which are now competing for the same type of housing that other locals might be doing. We've also seen a substantial increase in construction costs. You may recall 2 or 3 months ago that the Housing Select Committee brought forward a report that showed that the cost of constructing housing has increased by, in some cases, 100% since 2020. As you'll look at Figure 5, the average wage growth has been 17%, so there's a substantial difference between the cost of housing and even constructing housing compared to what people can afford. Looking to 2051, and we chose 2051 because that is what's required by the province, and all of our planning documents go to that time horizon. We wanted to see what housing affordability problems could look like in the future. What we saw was that, based on the assumptions that I'll speak of in a minute or two, is that basically unaffordable housing problems will double by 2051. And so the assumption that we're using is that we looked at the number of households that we're expected to increase by, that there's no change in the proportion of the population that owns their building or owns their dwelling rather than renting it. The proportion of our population here with affordability problems doesn't change. So if it's 25% of rental households, that's going to remain constant until 2051. And that socioeconomic factors don't change as well. So if you're not tending to experience unaffordable housing now, it's unlikely that you're going to experience it in the future. Those are all the assumptions that we used in the projection. To look at housing goals for this, we considered 3 potential targets. So low is, and this is for new housing only. So 5% of all new ownership units would meet the affordability threshold, whereas 15% of all new rentals. Medium is 10% of all new owners, 20% of new rental units, and high is 10% of all new owner dwellings, but the number of rental units increases to 30%. One thing to note is that only the high goal reduces the affordable housing problems or incidents below the 2021 levels. And that's just to ensure that we're building more affordable housing, or at least aiming to build more affordable housing than the population is growing. Table 5 on this screen provides a distribution of the target for ownership housing based on income deciles. You also note that I put the attainable housing portion in that table. That's based on the region's definition that they look at when they're also reviewing our targets as well. For rental, table 6 and 7 provides a further breakdown of how many units we need to build by income decile, which also equates to what the maximum rents would be. So 551 would be the maximum rent for someone in the first income decile. Chances are those types of households would be earning rent to income or be in supportive housing, or some of the types of housing that, someone who would be homeless and didn't have a job would need. And it goes kind of so on and so forth. One thing that is worth mentioning too is that even though we look at housing need, if you look at table 6, the fifth and sixth income deciles is lower than those, or the need or the target is lower than those in the first 4 deciles. There's still an important need for that type of housing. That's what we, in the United States at least, call workforce housing. It's those who are gainfully employed but in lower wage sectors of the economy. So your accommodation, your retail, some of the things that, the service sector, for example. Now, it has been noted that the housing targets aren't enforceable. So when a developer comes, the town can't force them to have, 10% of their new ownership units be affordable. Or if it's a rental project, that 30% of the units be rental. So I think it's worth mentioning that, the goals are still important. One is we are updating the official plan and we do want to conform with provincial policy. But more importantly, when we do, it provides support for affordable housing when it does come through. How does it do that? Well, if an affordable housing proponent goes to a senior level of government for funding, and they say the town of Lincoln has this affordable housing target, it shows the funder that the town of Lincoln is serious for this, and that they're willing to also probably provide more support. It also shows that there is a significant need in the community, that, we've taken the time to make these housing targets. In the odd case, while we can't compel developers to provide affordable housing, it does, in some cases, provide the door or the opportunity to provide some affordable housing, particularly in the private sector. Lastly, it also helps educate the community on the need. I know that 4129 Hickson Street, that development was brought forward or mentioned by some of the delegates, but it is still important because even recently, I've had residents come up to me and say, well, why do we need affordable housing? So, when there is opposition to a project or affordable housing development or a development with a significant component of it, we have the data to say there is a need, and this is why we need to undertake it, and this is why the affordable housing component is particularly important. One thing I also want to note is that Table 7 provides a breakdown of the targets based on bedroom need. When we talk about the role of the municipality, it's one that is sometimes muddled because of all of the different things coming at all of the changes happening to policy, and change over the past 20 years, particularly in the last 10. Now, municipalities are key enablers of housing development. While funding does come from the feds and the provinces, municipalities control where, the type, and how quickly housing can get built. One of the things that the Housing Select Committee has talked about quite a bit is that municipalities really can control how quickly a development gets built, particularly as it goes through the development process. There are developments where housing can get expedited in 3 months per se, or 3 or 4 months. And then other times it can take up to 5 years, just because staff may not be familiar with it, or there's just processes that they need to go through. So while there are a limited set of levers that the municipality has to support affordable housing, they're very important. And what are those levers? Well, there's the provision of surplus land for new affordable and mixed income housing that's purpose-built, increasing flexibility for development regulations through official plan and zoning, expediting of the approvals process, as well as waiving and deferral of municipal fees. So, some final thoughts. Housing challenges are less acute than other areas in Niagara, but the issue is growing and it's vastly underreported, not only in the community but within Niagara. And because of recent changes and socioeconomic trends, we're seeing that it's increasingly affecting, working households for a myriad of reasons. What we're seeing is that there's a growing shortage of affordable housing options for low to moderate income residents. And lastly, the town has a crucial role in supporting the construction of new affordable housing through flexible land use planning policy and regulations, facilitating partnerships, the provision of resources, which may be appropriate land, fee waivers, and accelerated development approvals. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you very much, Mr. Workin, and appreciate the presentation. Are there any questions from committee? We'll start with Mayor Easton.
Thank you very much, Josh. You have done a very good job on this report, and I'm sure the whole committee appreciates it. If we can go to page 14, I just want to make a couple of clarifications. This is the role of municipalities. While I agree with you absolutely, and we are certainly a community that would be separated out if we were looking at the expedition of approvals, I think we should clarify that that does not mean that what is approved gets built quickly, and we have no control over that. Would you agree with that? I just wanted to clarify that.
No, through you, Chair. That is correct. So we may, I should preface that by saying that if it's a purpose-built rental, specifically purpose-built, affordable housing development, what you're going to see is that most likely, and if they have all their funding in place, that it will get built very quickly. But as we brought a report not too long ago to council, that there can be a delay between the time that you get development approvals and actually construction starting. And that's generally because funding can take a while to acquire through the various processes, through the CMHC and all those other items, so.
So when you make that statement that we can control where the type and how quickly housing gets built, you're strictly talking about this model of affordable or attainable housing.
You know, in some cases, yes. So for example, you know, through our zoning, we can control where high-density developments generally get built, or where, what we'd like to see, or even through, you know, what we call the middle type of housing, so that's duplexes, triplexes, things like that. But I will use one example. So, for example, United Mennonite Homes. In other municipalities, it could have taken a lot longer, but, you know, through the work of myself, my colleagues, and the director of planning, we pushed through site plan very quickly. And so they were able to start construction much sooner than here in Lincoln than they would in other municipalities. So it really depends on the project. But if we can, as a municipality, provide all the tools for them to start as quickly as possible, that makes all the difference in a lot of cases.
Okay, and through you, Madam Chair, the waiving and deferral of municipal fees. We know eventually, when it comes down to the budget, that an accommodation has to be found for waived fees. We have to assign that to a source. And so, in this case, what do you think that source would be?
Through you, so, through the chair. So I think it's a little premature for me to talk about what types of fees can be waived at this time. I do know that the province, through recent changes, has essentially waived development charges for purpose-built affordable housing developments, so that is one mechanism. But we will be coming forward in the future through to identify potential other sources for fee waivers if that is feasible.
And would those...
Mayor Easton, sorry, can I just allow Director Bruder to speak to that as well?
Yes, definitely, thank you.
Thanks, Madam Chair. Yeah, just to add to Mr. Workington's response, I think to Your Worship, you're also talking about maybe what would we attribute some of these waiving of fees, like what type of development perhaps. I think, you know, you follow the provincial threshold as it's brought before you in terms of a truly purpose-built affordable housing project, and I think that's where you would apply a lot of these, not necessarily in totality. We'd have to look at a set of criteria. As Mr. Workington says, we'd be working through something like that in terms of next steps. But I just wanted to highlight too, when you also, it's not just the fees, and there's a few of them. There's building permit fees, there's planning application fees, there's all these things, site plan administration fees can all be looked at, but it's also the type too of a development that it would apply to.
And that's very helpful. And Madam Chair, would we then have to report those gaps as a loss of revenue, potential revenue?
Through you, Madam Chair, I think we would definitely have to look at that in terms of what the impact is. So yeah, we would have to report that and look at how it gets funded otherwise, because it would be in certain circumstances monies that we would be otherwise collecting. So.
Okay, that's very helpful. Thank you very much. Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you very much, Josh.
Councillor Miklick, please go ahead.
Thank you very much. Through you to Josh, thank you for this report. You've been working on this portfolio for a long time, and I'm not sure if there's many that know more about this from a planning perspective than yourself in the area, so my compliments to you for your work on this. On slide 6, you have this defining affordable rental housing, bachelor 949 to 2290. I see the rents go up, but the cost to income ratio doesn't. It stays the same. I'm trying to understand what that chart, what those numbers mean. Like, why wouldn't the cost to income ratio go up when the rent is $14.84? And like, I don't know if you can clarify that.
No, absolutely. So the way that the province defines it is when you're looking at the cost-to-income ratio, they're only looking at the top income for the sixth decile. So for all of those different types of housing. So if it's for one-bedroom bachelor, it's all looking at, let's just say if it's 90,000, if you're earning 90,000 and that's the top of the income bracket there, they'll just apply it directly to all different types of housing. Whereas the average market looks at, the average market rent looks at what the average market rents are for each of those different dwelling units.
Okay, I still don't know if I understand it, but I don't know. This might be something that you have to explain to me in more detail, because it's just, yeah, so a place costs 90 grand, the rent is 950, cost to income ratio is 2290. But a 3-bedroom, 3+ unit is 1484 and the cost to income is 2290. But why am I struggling to understand this?
It's a good question because it's an unusual way
Yeah,
of applying the cost to income ratio rather than looking at, let's say, household size, which would be more appropriate for a 3-bedroom, which would require.
Correct.
That's not how the province does it. They basically say, they've tried to simplify it by saying the top, we've determined that, if you're in the sixth income decile, you earn 90,000. And if you earn 90,000, this is the affordable rent for a bachelor, a one-bed,
Okay.
and it's only for one person. So there's no distinction between household types.
Okay, but I think it'd be tough for one person to afford a 3-bedroom unit, so.
I would agree.
Okay. And then another question I have is you and your committee, or, populations in general, do you look at what percentage of rentals are mom and pop sort of rentals, are, they're not necessarily corporate rentals, they're not necessarily purpose-built rentals, they're just, mom and pop rentals. Do you look at that? Do we have any data on what sort of ratios we have with that in Lincoln?
We do, but it's not the most, there would have to be, there's some error in that data, just because, well, what I can tell you is that there is a lack of purpose-built rentals, just because the economic model for the longest time has not worked. And so what you'll see in the past 20 years, and I think this is actually in one section of the Housing Needs Report, is that there was virtually no rental units, no new rental units in Lincoln. And then in the past 10 years, there's been a steady increase, and all of that is by mom and pops, people investing in investment properties and providing that through, buying a single detached dwelling, buying buying a house, and then renting it out, as opposed to a purpose-built apartment. We have had some, but I would say that the vast majority of new rentals that are coming on to the market are investor properties. And that's not only a Lincoln problem, I shouldn't say a problem, but that's not only happening here in Lincoln, that's everywhere.
Mm-hmm. And through you, I asked that because I was working on a motion possibly with the mayor, or with the CAO and Director of Planning. And maybe I'll ask your opinion as well, because I feel like the province just increased the 2020, or set the 2026 guideline to 2.2% increase. I feel like mom and pop landlords, they're not treated the same way as corporate landlords, and they are selling. They're cashing out. And to Dr. Stobie's point earlier, when a place gets sold or new people move in, that's contributing to the problem, where that person that might have been paying $1,100 a month finds himself paying $2,500 a month, and that's shattering. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Miklick. Councillor Brunei, please go ahead.
Thank you, Chair Murray. I have a question, not necessarily to you, Josh, but maybe to someone appropriate on the staff. You can certainly take a run at it. But we heard from Chair Walker, and again in your slides, we talk about the importance of educating the community on these needs. So we're taking the time. To Dr. Stobie's point, we need targets, we need a plan, we need a strategy. So I guess this starts with these, with these targets and these numbers, the data. So we hear about NIMBYism, reapplication. We've got people coming, loading the chambers, saying not in my backyard. I don't want this across my road. We go beyond legislation in terms of public meetings, surveys, et cetera, et cetera. So to staff, I guess I asked the question, how do we educate the community on these needs when it comes to housing? How are we going to do it?
That's a great question, and so it's something that I've wrestled with, and one of the things that the Housing Select Committee is looking at now is how do we build partnerships within the broader community? Because, with these reports, yeah, we're quite educated now in what we know the housing needs to be, but how do we disseminate that? And I think it's through meetings like this, but also, we've got people here that are interested in affordable housing as well. And so the more times that we talk about this, the more times that we put it out to the public, the more education that's going to happen. And so one of the next things that we're looking at in the Housing Select Committee is what kind of education do we put out there for the public, and how do we do it? And, with this data, we now can say, listen, there is a problem here in Lincoln. This is who it's affecting. It's affecting your neighbors, and you don't even know it. I think back to some of the times that I some of my responsibilities here at the work and the various things that I come across my desk. And, it's people living in trailers. It's people couch surfing. None of these things are known by the broader community, but if you're in it, you know about them. So to answer your question, and apologize if I haven't done it very succinctly, it's going to take a process. It's not just an overnight thing, but we are looking at how we can do it, and if there are ways that you and some of your fellow members of council might be able to help us in doing that, I would love to hear that and have a discussion about that.
Councillor Brunet, can I just let Director Bruder also speak to that?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I think Mr. Workington touched on a lot of things. Again, it's not any one given item. I think we've already been talking about this matter extensively, whether it be as development applications come forward, we're educating, we're talking about affordable housing in terms of how that works into a project, what it means when you do things potentially like decrease density or add other costs of construction in there, the developers that might influence the pro forma of a site and where it needs to be. We've held workshops, we've brought this report forward, but I think, Councillor, I think you bring up an excellent point, because no matter how much we educate on this, and I think it is, as staff, it's one of our responsibilities to do so, to make sure we're clear on what the needs are, what we're seeing. But, I think there's always going to be that NIMBYism to a certain extent, maybe a lesser extent, hopefully. That's the goal, by looking at, what these needs are and how important it is that we do what we can to address them. But I think no matter how much we communicate, little or a lot, there's still going to be some of that sentiment. We do things too, like we try to identify, and there's even criteria out there, as council knows, through the CMHC, which we've looked at before, where it looks at where's the best locations given their proximity to certain things, amenities, social services, what have you. We can look at those things as a backdrop, which we have in kind of supporting where the decisions may lie, but ultimately speaking, there's a variety of factors at play, and we're going to keep communicating as much as we can and work with our communications team to roll out maybe some more of an effort too, as Mr. Workington notes. But there's a lot that's already gone on to date, and I think some of the sentiment might still be there no matter what.
Chair Murray, if I could just continue along
Absolutely.
with another question? So I appreciate Director Bruder. I appreciate those comments, and I think they are, they resonate. We appreciate what staff is doing, but I think this is a huge point, because it's easy to say we need to educate, but we try to educate the community along the way. But I think there's just a misnomer. And I'm wondering, Chair Murray, if the Director of Planning can just, I asked that question on how we're going to do this, because I think there's an inherent issue that starts right when we have an application. So I'd like the Director, just for clarity, to speak to the fact that, not all sites, not all applications, not all sites provide the same opportunities. So I'm wondering if you could speak to that, Director Bruder.
Absolutely, Councillor, and through you, Madam Chair. That's totally accurate, and it's something that we've come across before. Even Mr. Workington mentioned, for example, a development, up near the QEW there at Ontario Street and the QEW with, there was talk initially about affordable housing. Is that an appropriate location? Some would say no. Yes, all right, fine, it's got access to the highway, but otherwise it's isolated from the rest of the community, and if it were a purpose-built or even offering a variety of affordable means, would it provide a good opportunity to integrate into a community? Would there be good access to certain services, like I mentioned, doctors' offices, maybe dry cleaners, maybe daycares, things like that? So those are all things that are factored into as well. So you're totally right. It depends on where you're talking about. There's certain areas, maybe along Ontario Street near King Street, a little more central. There's a lot more opportunities to access groceries, to go shopping for whatever you need without having to hop into a car or anything like that. All these things factor into location, but you're exactly right that not all sites are created equal when it comes to affordable housing opportunities. Some just don't make sense nearly as much as others for those reasons, and I hope that clarifies what you were hoping it would.
Thank you, Director Bruder. Thank you, Chair Marie.
Thank you, Councillor Brunet. Councillor Renchma, please go ahead.
Oh, thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you to both of the presenters. When Noah was speaking, Noah spoke about, and I think Dr. Stobie said that too, that we should look at ensuring that a portion of the BDSS site, I think it was both of you said that, is, I forget your words exactly, but that we commit to a certain amount of the BDSS site being, that we commit it to housing, so to affordable housing. So we already know that we can put targets in the official plan. Province has told us we have to do that. I'm presuming we're working on that in the background, making sure that we meet targets within our municipality for affordable housing. We can also zone areas for higher density. We can do that. Presumably we've done that. When it comes to specifically to the BDSS site, what does it mean? How do we effectively target a portion of the site for affordable housing? What does that mean? Does that mean that we designate a certain portion of the BDSS site under the official plan for higher density housing? Does it mean that we designate a portion of the BDSS site, or sorry, that we rezone a portion of the BDSS site for higher density housing? Is that enough? Is that what it means to apportion a certain percentage of the site for affordable housing? And the reason I ask this is because we've got a year and a half left of this council before the next election, and so maybe this question is also to Dr. Stobie and to Noah. What is it this council can do in the next year and a half, or the next year, to ensure that a portion of the BDSS site is I don't want to say designated, to me that's an official plan term, but is apportioned or is saved for affordable housing or is targeted for affordable housing? What does that look like? Is it just designating it under the official plan and rezoning a certain portion for higher density? Is that enough? What else can we do during this term of council?
Councillor Renchma, I'm going to have our Director of Planning answer that.
Okay, thanks.
Thanks, Madam Chair. And there's a lot that goes into that answer because, of course, when you look at the land use permissions on the property, sure, those are going to have to be adjusted, whether it's high density, medium density, whatever concept works on the site. And I think there's also a further engagement piece. We've already done some of that in terms of what could work, looking at other examples. I think when we talk about the commitment from council, first of all, that we do indeed want it at that site to begin with. And then everything else can permeate from that too. We still need to factor in, okay, now that we want it there, we have to look at what type of footprint do we need? How does it fit in from an accessibility standpoint? You can look at another site. For example, I know we're all familiar with the Port Care site. That site is accommodated in under an acre. So there's definitely options. How and where it looks like, I don't think we're quite there yet. But I think really what this council can do is at least support that and maybe some other things that get brought forward. For example, we've been having a lot of discussions with Niagara Region about other things we can do to make it a little easier. There's expanded public use provisions that can apply on various pieces of land so that you can make it easier for affordable housing, provided it meets certain criteria, it's nonprofit, or it's indeed done in collaboration, or it's supported or operated by Niagara Regional Housing. But that provides wider land use provisions to get around that whole lengthy process it can sometimes take to rezone something. That's something we can look at in terms, we already have a public use provision, but we can enhance that. So those are conversations we're having now. But I know our CAO also wants to chime in, but from my perspective, yeah, it's definitely, first of all, identifying that, yes, we want it there, and then we go in terms of, what exactly are we looking to achieve? What can we achieve on what type of footprint that works on the site? And from there, we can make it happen with the land use provisions. I think either it's rezoning or tweaking the public use provisions, we can go from there. But I know our CAO would like to chime in.
Mr. CAO, please go ahead.
Through you, Madam Chair, and this probably takes me back to the previous conversation or debate that was had around this horseshoe regarding BDSS, and I think, we're delving way too deep, I would suggest, on the matter. This is not about rezoning at this particular point in time. I would go to what Director Bruder just said to you. You make this a priority and part of your direction and vision to us. If I look back at Council's strategic plan and things you've done in the past, you've identified them as visions. From there comes a work plan, and from there comes us putting time, money, and resources towards it to get it done. So I would say be very, very clear with what you want, and I've always said to you, I take good direction. So if you're very clear on what you want, and that is to see affordable housing on this particular site and in this particular location, we will come back to you with options. But right now, getting into a debate, how much land, what is the cost of that land, what is the cost we're giving up or the revenue we're giving up, I think is putting the cart before the horse. So I would say make it a priority, make it part of your vision, direct us that that's what you want us to do, and then we'll come back to you with various strategies and options.
Okay, thank you for that. So Director Bruder, when you said you have to hear from us that we want it. So I guess the question is, what is it? Because we don't really, I think we struggle with how to define affordable housing. We just heard from the CAO that it's enough to say we want affordable housing on the BDSS site, and then staff will take it away and come back with us with options. Some of those options might be things that we can do during this term of council. We can again, dive deeper into things like rezoning and designating. Have I got that right?
Through you, Madam Chair, I think so. Again, as the CAO was saying, I think right now, the direction should be that, we're looking at, and I think we all think here, in terms of what we're talking about is a purpose-built affordable housing development. I think that's what we're all talking. And when we talk about affordable housing, I think right now, to keep things clear, we're looking at under the definitions that Mr. Workington provided in this presentation. I think just to make sure we're all talking about the same thing, that's what we're talking about. So, how and where that looks like and how it integrates into the overall site, as the CAO stated, that's what we can come back to you with options about. But that's what I take in terms of what we're actually talking about here, for us to drill down into those options for that type of thing.
Okay, thank you. And one more question, Madam Chair. Clarification?
Go ahead, please.
Director Bruder used the term public use provision. Can you expand on that a little bit?
Certainly, and through you, Madam Chair. Yeah, this is a provision in most zoning bylaws. A lot of times it talks about exactly that, public uses. For example, schools, sometimes utility centers that provide distribution, what have you. And really, it just provides kind of a more open land use provision. It can be applied to lands that are already zoned for other things like residential, just to allow those types of really crucial public services in general. And a lot of municipalities are, and the region is working collaboratively with them, as well as outside of the region too, to apply that same flexibility to affordable housing projects, but not just any. We're not talking, something where a developer is including 10 units in their development. We're talking about something purpose-built, something that, again, is in collaboration with Niagara Regional Housing, something to that effect.
Okay, that helps a lot. Thank you very much. Appreciate that.
Thank you very much, Councillor. Mayor Easton, please go ahead.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. So I'm going to direct my question, Madam Chair, to either, I think first the CAO and Mr. Bruder. I think this conversation is starting to move in the right direction. I had written down some comments here about ties into other determinants of health. The issue of equity, of course, is very high, overarching, but we always talk about impacts. You make a decision and then you start looking at what you think the impact is going to be. And we talk about determinants of health. I talk about it all the time because it doesn't matter what you do, there will be an impact on those important elements of people's lives and how well they live or don't. And so I had spoken to the CAO about this a couple of times, about proactively framing priorities. This is, the whole issue of affordable housing, Madam Chair, does not stand alone. And it's not the only thing we're dealing with. It's just one thing, a very important one thing that's not in its place at the moment, but it's going to be. But there's a whole lot of other services and systems that we have to have in place to make this big system work. And we know what a lot of those are because we've been working very hard to implement them in our community. The question that I have for the CAO is, how closely do you relate those strategic elements that we've been working on, let's just say since 2014, although Lincoln has been working on strategic planning for a long, long time, decades actually. So how do you see that connecting with this one problem that has so many different elements to it that you really have to plan in a multidimensional way?
Mr. CEO, please go ahead.
Through you, Madam Chair, and why don't I'll try to take a stab. I mean, I think, the mayor is correct in that affordable housing is a critical social determinant of health. The mayor and the region have been using those. We've said we've incorporated them or look to incorporate them when we do our own decision-making and bring our reports forward. But when you think about affordable housing, when you think about essential resources, I think about employment, which is part of that continuum. I think about educational and social supports that go along with that. It isn't just singular. It is very much multi-dimensional, and I would say when we look at all of our priorities, and I'll go back to at least the ones I've been involved with when I think of our strategic plans now, 3 of them. We've always tried to tie what we're doing. We've tried to set larger scale themes, whether it be around transportation safety, whether it be around building more housing, whether it be around growing the economy and economic development. All those play a key role in what we're looking to do. And I think, again, one of the things, I think we've heard a lot tonight is about we need a plan, and we need, to set what is council's vision around this particular issue and then come back to you with a plan. But one of the comments I was going to make earlier when Councillor Brunet asked this question is, it's going to mean making some unpopular decisions and unpopular recommendations from staff to you. And that, I'll go back to a word I just used, it's going to take us being bold. We want to tackle some of these problems that are larger, that are unpopular. That means, yes, there are going to be people in this crowd. Tonight, we see people here are supportive of where we're going. You go to last week, we had 250 people here not supportive of a development. Now, staff haven't weighed into that, but very much not supportive of a development. I'm not saying all development is good. I was on the record saying I didn't support the development last week. But just because we have a group of people saying we shouldn't be doing X or Y because it's in my backyard or close to my backyard, that doesn't mean that that should sway the decision solely. The decision should be based on good, sound, expert advice. Councillor Mikulik and I had this conversation around, when experts speak, we should take their advice. Experts are coming and speaking to us about things that impact affordable housing, that impact the well-being of our community, that impact, can our children find jobs and live and work in this community? And so I would suggest that I think those are all interrelated, and the social determinants of health need to, I think, be something we anchor ourselves on even more moving forward.
So that's, I think that's a very good beginning. So thank you very much for that, Mr. CAO. And let me go a little further then and suggest that instead of hiring experts, outside experts, that we need to somehow draw our community closer to us so that we can start having conversations about what we know should be happening in this community. I don't know how easy that's going to be, because there is a very strong line that has been drawn between will there be development, won't there be development. However, I wasn't at the meeting, I wasn't here last week at that meeting. I was sharing the meeting on Zoom, and so you don't get the same feeling. But it was a different crowd, and they certainly seemed to have an insight that I had not experienced for a long, long time, and it's one that we need to take advantage of. So, I want to make a statement, because I think that as a person who now has strong mayor powers, and this is my wheelhouse now, planning for housing is in my wheelhouse. So I have had a conversation with the CAO about developing a staff-led statement on this entire matter and providing us with options so that we can move forward. And so I'm saying that publicly so that you know that I'm thinking about this as well. And I think that we have reached a very good place, and thank you, Josh, for the contribution you've made. Noel, Dr. Stobie, thank you both for the work that you've done and the leadership that you've provided, and for your committee members that are here. I want to thank the Trinity Church and many other churches, because you didn't just survey yourselves, you surveyed a lot of churches to find out what people were doing and how they were doing it across the town, and all of that information is now starting to come forward. So I feel very hopeful for the future. I believe that we have the talent within our staff to come up with something really beneficial and even more hopeful. And with that, I'll be done. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much, Mayor Easton. I don't see anyone else in the queue, so I'm going to move on to a motion moved by Councillor Timmers. The committee receive and file for information report PD-16-25 and the associated presentation regarding Lincoln Housing Needs Demand Study findings and proposed affordable housing targets, and that committee endorse the target with respect to high housing need as follows. Encourage that 10% of all new ownership housing and 30% of all new rental housing in Lincoln be affordable. I will now ask our Legislative Committee Coordinator to open that vote. Deanna, please go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. That vote is now open. Councillor Benjima, may I have your vote?
In favor.
In favor. Thank you. And the vote is now closed, and that carries. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We will now consider item 7.2.2, report PD-14-25 regarding corporate climate adaptation plan and environmental initiatives update. Our environmental coordinator will now provide comments. Ms. Butowski, can you please come forward?
Thank you. Through you, Madam Chair. This climate change and environmental initiatives report focuses on 3 priority actions that were identified by staff in fall of 2024. Some of the key highlights of current initiatives include Under education and engagement, we are preparing to launch internal climate change training for staff at both the town of Lincoln and the town of Pelham to build capacity for climate action. In terms of climate action planning, we are developing the town's corporate climate mitigation plan, which will provide a roadmap for reducing our municipal greenhouse gas emissions. And for our tree canopy and stormwater management initiatives, we continue to engage community members, business partners, town staff and partners in tree planting efforts, whether it be through supporting community planting efforts, identifying and leveraging funds or partnerships for municipal planting projects, and looking inward to update our policies and strengthen practices related to tree planting and maintenance. So these are just a few examples that reflect our continued progress in building climate resilience, promoting sustainability, and supporting community involvement in climate action.
Thank you very much, Ms. Witkowski. Thank you. Do members of committee have questions? Councillor Timmers, please go ahead.
Thank you very much, Chair. Through you to the presenter of the report. Just a question. So you talked about training for staff. I'm wondering if there would be any kind of training for council to educate a little more. And I'm also thinking about the community, how the community can get involved and to be educated a little more on the town's climate initiatives. I know that was a long question for you, but I think you get the gist of it.
Through you, Madam Chair, yes, I do think that climate change education for council can be adapted, whether it's through what we are presenting to staff. It can be part of the staff initiative, or maybe tailored a little bit more towards a council target audience. And same with the community members. These educational materials can be adapted and posted on our webpage. We can look at doing maybe specific workshops with community members, community groups, and things like that. So I think that there are opportunities to do that. This is kind of our first start, is with staff, so that we can enable climate action throughout the municipality. But of course, we do want to expand those initiatives further.
Okay, thank you, Chair. Through another question. So Samantha, you're our environmental coordinator, and I think this is the first meeting that you're actually presenting to us. And I just wanted to ask a little bit about the shared services with the town of Pelham, and what kinds of things and what kind of things do you do to collaboratively with that municipality? I just want to understand how the shared services are working with this.
Absolutely. Through you, Madam Chair, to the councillor. A lot of these shared initiatives that we're working on right now, we're focusing on tree canopy works. So again, this is utilizing knowledge to streamline and enhance the protection of urban trees, encouraging community involvement in preserving and enhancing tree canopy. We are doing that in different ways in the town of Pelham, but I think that the end results that we're hoping for kind of complement each other at the end goal that we're working towards. We're also collaboratively working on our climate action plan. So we're working through the milestones mentioned in this report at the same pace, and thinking about recommendations that may align future work plan items as well, through my role and otherwise. And then climate education, again, we're working on the webinars and material that can complement both the town of Lincoln and the town of Pelham, as well as educate both municipalities on what we're doing in both places. Just to kind of, we're doing different initiatives in both municipalities, so it would be good to share that information and those lessons learned. And then I think lastly, something that is very apparent right now is we are participating and representing the municipality in various partnerships and collaborative initiatives, whether it's through the NPCA or the Municipal Climate Change Action Network. We're able to align kind of our goals and lessons learned through those partnerships as well.
Okay, that's great. Thank you very much. This is a very good report, and I think joining community efforts, working together, obviously we're going to have a much bigger impact. So I appreciate you going into detail for me and explaining that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Timmers. Councillor Miklik, please go ahead.
Thank you very much. Through you to Samantha. Just curious, reading over the appendix, the A, where does environmental stewardship fall with respect to all of this? And the reason why I ask this is because when I was at AMO one time, the Assembly of First Nations chief basically said, start picking up your trash, start picking up the garbage around your neighborhoods, start taking care of the land that you're living on now. That's something you can do immediately. So I'm just curious, where are we with that and how do we approach that besides the token Earth Day cleanup?
Thank you. Through you, Chair, to the councillor. I think we try to build in stewardship when we're tackling each one of these initiatives, whether we're talking through staff being stewards of the environment and trying to be example to the community in these initiatives, as well as we're reaching out to specific community groups as recognizing them as stewards of the environment as well, whether it's, Planting Networks, our urban forest working group. We're trying to message that, we are stewards, we're the example, we want others to follow and be stewards as well. So, you raise a good point. I think that we could maybe be stronger in that messaging and really make that more of a focus throughout these initiatives, but it is kind of a core component of climate adaptation and sustainability.
Appreciate that answer. And again, I ask that because I don't really see it clearly in this document at all. So that's why in the future, we should incorporate that or include that somehow. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor. There being no further questions, I have a motion moved by Councillor Brunet that committee receive and file for information report PD-14-25 regarding the Corporate Climate Adaptation Plan and Environmental Initiatives Update. I will now ask our Legislative Committee Coordinator to open the vote. Deanne, please go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. That vote is now open. And Councillor Renjima, may I have your vote?
In favor, thank you.
In favor. Thank you. That vote is now closed and that carries.
Thank you. So now we're going to consider item number 7.2.3, report EDC-09-25 regarding Growing Forward, the 2024 Economic Development and Tourism Year in Review. Our Director of Economic Development and Communications and Tourism Development Officer will now provide a presentation. Director Deanne and Ms. Basilewski, please go ahead.
Thank you, Chair, and I'll make some comments while that presentation is being brought up on the screen, and look at that, they're quick. So good evening, everyone. Mayor Easton, Chair Murray, and members of council. Very pleased to be here this evening, both Brittany and I presenting our 2024 Economic Development Tourism Year in Review. Today's presentation offers a snapshot of our accomplishments, community impacts, and future direction. We'll talk through our strategic focus, economic indicators, tourism growth, and of course our 2025 priorities and the work that we've been doing over the past few months. We had a successful year and have spent the last few months building upon our accomplishments. A special thank you obviously to Ms. Basilewski for her hard work and dedication, and of course to our good friend Mr. Cameron Rotz, who helped deliver on our success last year before moving on to career in the family business. Brittany will be undertaking an overview of our tourism activities, touching on many facets of her work, which obviously include our DMO project. But I do want to note that while we will be discussing it a little bit this evening, both Brittany and I do intend on coming back later this year with a more fulsome update, as our DMO project is a multi-year endeavor and continues to be a focus, obviously, for our team. As Council has identified growing our economy as a key Council priority, I'm pleased to say that economic growth and job creation continues to be a focus of our team, and we saw success in 2024. So Lincoln's economic development activities are built up around 5 key pillars. You've seen me present this before, but of course we want to go over it again. Investment attraction, business retention expansion, tourism destination development, workforce and talent development, innovation and leadership. These pillars guide our decisions, our initiatives, and help lay the groundwork for economic growth and job creation in our community. 2024 was a strong economic year. We saw over $100 million in construction value across residential, commercial, and industrial growth in our community. We saw a 2% GDP growth year over year, with a forecasted growth of 3.25% in 2025. I'll bet tariffs could potentially have an impact on those numbers. We saw over 300 new jobs created in our community, so a great economic number. In key sectors including manufacturing, agriculture, tourism, and hospitality, focusing, of course, on beverage manufacturing, food and accommodations, as well as the healthcare and social assistance sector. In fact, since 2018, Lincoln has seen an increase of over 2,200 jobs in our community and over 130 new businesses. So, let me say that again. Since 2018, Lincoln has seen an increase of over 2,200 jobs in our community and over 130 new businesses. These numbers reflect growing confidence and investment in Lincoln, showcasing that our economic development strategy and our activities are indeed working. Before you is a sample of some of the new businesses or business expansions that we saw in 2024. Again, this is just a sample, but this shows that Lincoln is a place to do business and where businesses want to grow and invest. Business retention and expansion is a result of our constant communication and engagement with our businesses. You've heard me say this countless times before, but the jobs in our community are created from our existing businesses. Supporting local businesses, of course, remains a key priority of our team. To do that, we've hosted roundtable discussions across our community. We've sent out a bi-weekly e-newsletter with a fantastic open rate. Let me tell you, a lot of private sector businesses would love an open rate of 43.9%. Generally speaking, you get in single digits. So that is a fantastic number. We partnered with the BIN Chamber, of course, to respond to some of the tariff disruptions that we've seen this year. We've held countless calls and business visits across our community, of course, all with the goal of encouraging and creating an environment for businesses to succeed. So workforce development continues to be a key element of our work as connecting job seekers with employers helps strengthen our community. Our workforce efforts included promoting our workinlincoln.ca website. So this is our Work in Lincoln initiative. Of course, we did this in partnership with the Employment Help Center, and this is a free service for our businesses to use. So last year, we did see about 65 local jobs posted. And of course, we hosted 2 seasonal job fairs with thousands of attendees, with some people being hired on the spot from some of our businesses. In regards to some of our 2025 activities, we are developing a new economic development strategy for our community. This will be a smaller, more pared-down strategy that will focus on the successes of our last strat plan and will be completely done in-house. Economic development continues to work with our staff colleagues on the redevelopment of the BDSS property. Tariffs and their impacts, of course, as I mentioned, are a big topic this year and have taken up a lot of time. So we've done some roundtable discussions, in fact, just having one late last week. So everything from regional ECDEV tariff meetings down to our local tariff response team, we're obviously engaged on this topic, and it will be a hot topic for the remainder of the year. Physician recruitment is a key priority as we continue to work with our local medical clinics and the region's physician recruitment specialists to increase access to primary care in our community. And of course, infrastructure planning, which does include public transportation to help both visitors and residents alike moving through our community. This includes things such as Go Transit advocacy. And of course, as was just mentioned, any complete community, one that people can work in and come to our community, obviously includes housing. So we look forward to working with our friends in planning on that. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Brittany and then look forward to some questions at the end. Thank you, Chair. Sorry.
Thank you, Director Deaney, for that kind introduction. Good evening, Madam Mayor, members of council, and to all community members joining us tonight, both in person as well at home. Thank you for the opportunity to share this year's tourism highlights, as well as our exciting future plans for 2025 and beyond. It's been a privilege to be able to reflect on an incredible year of growth here in tourism. By way of innovation and collaboration, Lincoln's tourism sector continues to thrive. As we continue to build upon the success from 2023, 2024, we are building Niagara Benchland's reputation as a leading destination throughout Ontario and beyond. Tonight, I'll walk you through some of the key highlights of our accomplishments from 2024, the impacts they've had on our local economy, and the work well underway for an even stronger 2025 year. So let's dive in together. In 2024, we hit some major strides to position Lincoln as a standout destination. From formally transitioning the former 20 Valley Tourism Association to the new St. Catharines Lincoln Destination Partnership, to expanding our destination marketing capacity through the implementation of our MAP program, Municipal Accommodations Tax, for those who may not be familiar, as well as every step we have designed to ensure that Lincoln's destination's visibility, its economic growth, and overall tourism prowess continue to strengthen our local tourism economy. One of those major accomplishments in 2024 was the development of our first inaugural Harvest Fest. Despite a late funding confirmation, Harvest Fest actually exceeded town staff's expectations thanks to an incredible amount of support from our local business partners and a strategic partnership with our partners at the Downtown Bench Beamsville BIA. Through this inaugural campaign, we featured over 56 businesses in Lincoln, reached over 3 million consumers through various marketing tactics, and achieved a 38% overall digital conversion rate on our event landing page. This is well above industry average at 2 to 4% for travel and tourism, and I think speaks widely to the compelling demand and travel motivation that the Niagara Benchlands is garnering across Ontario, Canada, and beyond. These types of events and activation are more than just marketing. This really helps our visitors stay longer, spend more, and discover both the beauty and the bounty that Lincoln has to offer on fall. We are looking to position this destination as Ontario's premier fall destination and look forward to making an announcement shortly with you about our 2025 plans on this upcoming activity. Beyond our kind of forward-facing elements, we were also very strategic in launching Lincoln's municipal accommodations tax program, that's a mouthful, as this marked a major win for sustainable tourism funding for the town and for also helping to limit the impact on our taxpayers. Because of this program, we are actually able to generate over $120,000 in gross collection revenue in year one without any increase to town staff, and we're able to then translate that funding to a dedicated 80% of those funds, directly back into our joint destination marketing organization to help support both destination development and joint destination marketing initiatives. We also had innovation at the forefront of our tourism team in 2024. We had several different major wins, including the launch of WanderNiagara.com for the joint DMO. We invested in Environics visitor research, developed and launched a new digital engagement tool for our local tourism partners, and we even refreshed and reinvested into our high-impact visual assets. All these tactics are all designed to attract, engage, and retain a high-yield visitor all year round for our collective destinations. 2024 was truly a transformative year for our DMO as we officially transitioned our former 20 Valley Tourism Association to the new St. Catharines Lincoln Destination Partnership. I do want to take a moment to recognize the board of directors that helped see that organization through to transition. Their support and guidance has been invaluable for our team as we've come to this position in 2025. In addition to our transition of the TVTA, the DMO jointly with the City of St. Catharines was able to secure and leverage over $217,500 in secured grant funding, all to help support the development of this organization for long-term poised success. We look forward again to co-hosting, as Mr. Deaney had previously said, the organization's first annual general meeting this coming November of 2025. Looking ahead in 2025, it's all about keeping the momentum and strategic alignment with our tourism sector moving. We'll be onboarding a new DMO board of directors, continuing to deliver high-impact joint marketing campaigns across Ontario and key U.S. drive segment markets, as well as continuing to enhance and always resource with our local business partners new tools and resources to help them achieve business intelligence in their own destinations. This will also include strategic operator seminars, seasonal activations, and ongoing industry town halls, as our team's ability to connect, engage, and listen to our community has been a major pillar of our success. Overall, we're proud of the progress we've been able to make here in the tourism team and able to energize our local community with that same alignment. Our tourism work that we do directly supports economic development here in our community, significant job creation, as well as overall community vibrancy, making Lincoln a place we can all agree is a fantastic place to grow, prosper, and belong. So without further ado, I will turn it over back to you, Madam Chair, for any further comments or questions.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Brittany and Paul. Exciting to see all the things that are happening, and I love the idea of Benchlands being Ontario's premier autumn destination. I'll be here, I promise. Do we have any questions from committee? Councillor Timmers, please go ahead.
Thank you very much, Chair, through you to Brittany and Paul. Fantastic. This is a good news tonight for me. All these reports have been very good. But I'm always so impressed with what you bring to us, and it's fantastic where we've come from. And when I look back 11 years ago and TVTA sitting on that, and it was just, it didn't seem possible that we could ever reach this level. And it's just incredible, and I'm still happy to still be part of the new board. So, question for you, when Matt Tax, when that first was presented, and there was a lot of discussion around the table, and so in 2024, it was $120,000. So I can't remember what you predicted. What was your estimate? I want to hear that.
Through you, Madam Chair, to Councillor Timmers. If you remember correctly, we made a fairly conservative estimate in our 2024 projection, knowing that we would be laddering in short-term accommodation licensing. We actually had a revenue target gross of $114,000, so we actually exceeded our initial revenue target. That's even with the delay in us actually starting our STA collection, start of effective July 1st of 2024. And if you remember, to be able to work with that sector, we also ensured we allowed a bit of a if you would, a forgiveness period for our short-term accommodations partners. If they had already scheduled and reserved accommodations or reservations up until that July 1st time period, even if they were post that July 1 date, those reservations were actually exempt from that. This year, we are extremely impressed with how our accommodation sector is currently pacing. We are pacing at over 40% collectively right now, and this is just at the beginning of high season. That number continues to increase daily. So we're expecting to not only meet, but hopefully, with all of these efforts that we're all making collectively together, exceed those targets once again in 2025.
That's fantastic. Well done. Through you, Chair. Just a couple of comments. So I know you're hearing the bench name out there. Like, there seems to be a real buzz happening in the town, and we're hearing it. It's incredible. You feel it. You know, it's almost like a wave coming. And the news of the new Hampton Inn coming, which we need as accommodation. So it's just incredible. Everything's coming together. So thank you very much to both of you for all that you do. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Timmers. Councillor Miklik, please go ahead.
Thank you very much through you to our ACDEV team. Again, I echo those sentiments. You work tirelessly year-round to ensure that there's, both visitors to the local businesses and wineries locally as well as from out of town. So, question I have is on in your report on page 10 of 19, 2024 funding outcomes year 3. In 2024, $25,000 was awarded to 3 high-impact projects selected through a rigorous adjudication process. I'm struggling. Why am I struggling? Like, we gave $14,000 to Balls Falls, and I struggle with that because Balls Falls is funded almost 50% by municipalities through levy, and we're giving $14,000 on top of that voluntarily. So should I be struggling with that, or how should I feel about that? Because, people are asking me, is there anything going on here? What are we doing there? What events are we planning? And usually to plan these events, it comes down to funding. So are we, how should I be feeling about that sort of funding?
Through you, Chair, to Councillor Miklik. Councillor, if you remember during the adjudication process, when we brought these forward to Council, there was no strategic initiative of what organization in the tourism realm could apply or not apply for this. So the open category was actually open to any tourism-based business conducting business within the town of Lincoln. There was a rigorous, again, adjudication committee, all completely third party, including some town staff, all town staff with some third party as well, that did grade these applications against an evaluation matrix. Again, top earning applications saw the greatest amount of award, and that's the recommendation we brought forward to Council. It can't be understated, however, that programs like the Balls Falls Thanksgiving Festival, who actually welcomed their 20th anniversary last year, 50th anniversary, my apologies for misstating that incredible accolade. They bring 20,000 plus individuals of visitors to the town of Lincoln yearly. They themselves as well are not funded specifically just to direct community-based events. This is over and above the regular conservation efforts that those funds go to help that organization support. So By bringing forward Adventureland's Destination Development Fund, our entire program was to help look to drive traffic and visitation and visitor spend during the shoulder season, and the Balls Falls Thanksgiving Festival is a perfect example of the economic benefit and impact to driving visitation in our destination during that time. Did I answer your question appropriately?
You did. I just, I feel that personally, that money could be spent differently. I feel that if we don't have, this year, other ideas come forward, that we could bank that money. I feel we can modify that criteria to maybe not, appropriate that money to a levy-funded entity. I feel that it reduces the amount of funds that could be utilized by local members of the community that could perhaps need it more. That's just my personal opinion, respecting your answer.
Chair, if I may, through your chair to the councillor, all good comments, councillor. As you'll see at the bottom of that page, and as you'll recall from our 2025 budget deliberations, so the Niagara Benchland Destination Development Fund was discontinued as the money was put forward towards the physician recruitment program. So the 25,000 would be used for that initiative this year,
Okay.
not the Niagara Destination Development Fund.
Okay, thank you. That's just my comments on that. And then another, you mentioned earlier through you is the newsletter. I like that newsletter. I have to say, I'm one of the people that clicks it, reads it, and I've heard from other business owners that click it, they read it, and they've told me that it is informative. And one of the things, I read the last one, and I love this one that's got land. Let's pitch it to tourism dragons. I think that's a great idea, that people are sitting on land or sitting on properties that may be underutilized and they don't know what to do with them. And they're able to, make them available and pitch them to perhaps local investors to better use them. With this initiative, I got the notice on July 16th, but the deadline was July 18th. That seems a little quick.
Yeah, through you, Chair, to the councillor. So that is an initiative, councillor, that is being run by the Economic Development Conference or Council of Ontario with the ministry. The deadline was the 18th, but in speaking with them, there's still some opportunities to provide some potential land. We have had 2 individuals that have reached out as a result of that newsletter. And so we're in conversation about, is it actually beneficial to put forward these lands? So we got to do some evaluation on that. But the good thing is should we meet some criteria, then there's still an opportunity to put something forward to the ministry and EDCO. But it is a rigorous process. And my understanding is if things don't work out this year, EDCO and the ministry are going to be looking to do a similar event next year. So there may be some opportunity. So the intention of the newsletter was to try to gain some information in terms of what's potentially out there and the appetite that landowners may have in putting a pitch together. So there is still some time.
I think that's fabulous. I think that 2 people is better than 0 people, and even if they're not in time for the pitch to these investment dragons, they're on your radar and your team's radar for possible development down the road or tourism opportunities. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor. Councillor Reimer, please go ahead. I bumped you out, I'm sorry. Mary, can I ask you to please come out of the queue?
Sure.
Thank you. Now you can go back in. My apologies.
Thank you, Chair Murray. Through you to the presenters, thank you, Paul and Brittany, for being here tonight for this report. Congratulations to your ECDev team for all the work. A couple comments and a question. The job fairs, talking to some people in the small business community, are tremendous success. I think I've been at all of them, and still receive positive feedback from both people who found jobs and those who are looking for employees. So great job on that. As well, the town hall meetings for tourism operators. Those have become a can't miss event, I think, for people who are in the tourism industry. So thank you very much for those. A question for either of you, I guess maybe Paul, because you presented page 4 of the report, the at a glance numbers. we talk about 300-plus jobs created, and you added as well about 2,200 since 2018. Looking through the lens that we've just talked about this evening about affordable housing, and I know we've had this talk before, Paul, about, I know any job is a good job, but sometimes there's better jobs. Do we know? I know yourself and your staff are aware of that type of difference. Do we know any of these percentages of those jobs that we create here would fit into that continuum that we had for those being able to afford housing, I guess, for lack of a better term, through you, Chair?
So good question, and through your chair to the counselor. I mean, we're still trying to parse through some of that data, counselor, and I can say anecdotally, a good percentage of those jobs that we did create last year were in some of the manufacturing sector, which tends to be on that higher scale. I think AMSI that just opened next door in regards to the employees that they have. But we're still trying to figure out some of that data. I mean, I know Statistics Canada looks, more so overarching in terms of what some salaries would be across the entire community. We could present that information. But in regards to the 300 specific, it's a little hard to dive into that. But anecdotally, I think we're seeing some on the higher end. But of course, retail continues to be a big component of our local economy here. And that tends to be, depending in terms of what establishment you're working for, could be minimum wage, but could be higher.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, the age demographic, and it's hard to control that as well too, because it's, they bring jobs into the community, but those people who work there might not be in the community as well. I realize it's a hard thing to grasp, but it is a positive stat in the right direction. So thank you very much. Thank you, Chair Murray.
Mayor Easton, please go ahead.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. This is a great report after quite an intense year, I must say. I've been continually impressed on the step-by-step achievement that you took, especially around the MAT tax and the DMO development. That was a long haul, there was no question, but it really is on track now, and it appears to be exactly where you want it to be. I don't see anything in this report about progress in the relationship with the geopark. And I wondered if you could speak to that, and because I think this is something that we're reading a great deal about it, but formalizing it within our structure, I would like to understand that better.
Through you, Chair, to Madam Mayor. Madam Mayor, I know you and I have spoke at length about the importance of the Niagara Geopark to our over-tourism infrastructure, and we, even at the DMO, if I can turn my hat and also speak on behalf of my colleagues in the city of St. Catharines, one of the major pillars of the Niagara Benchlands is we are Niagara's other natural wonder. Protecting these spaces and conservation efforts and making them available to guests is one of the major drivers of what is bringing visitation here to our community. Having strategic partners like the Geopark creating incredible product around our local amenities, also doing their own work to build product around the Geopark. They're working on incredibly immersive trails right now. They're doing interpretive history. We are so excited to see that formal announcement hopefully coming very soon. Other destinations in the world who have been able to achieve that global geopark status see an incredible uptick in economic activity because their traveler demand now actually exceeds what they have, and we are very well poised to be able to start welcoming that ecotourism visitor to Lincoln, not only exposing them to the geopark assets that we have here, but also to the wider breadth of product that we have in Lincoln as well. So you can guarantee that the Geopark, who has been included in our community consultation efforts to date on the DMO, as well as our tourism activities, will continue to be engaged as we go down the road, Madam Mayor, to make sure that we continue to keep that strategic pillar of being Niagara's other natural wonder alive.
That's a very comprehensive answer. Thank you for that. So let me move then to, and I don't have another example, but I think that Councillor Mikulic's question was quite a good one, because I remember having a conversation with you about the impact of the Conservation Authority on you reaching your goals within the whole tourism model. And yes, they are levy supported, there's no question about it. But I'm just wondering, but there's no comparable. There isn't any other, there's no other organization, no levy or levy supported that is comparable with them in terms of what they drive for everybody else's benefit. So how do we, and that may happen again, we may see that again, Madam Chair, when we start to look at the multiples of agencies, NGOs that are part of the geopark. So do you think that will happen again? Because the benefit is going to be down the road. It may not be for several years, but are there going to be more people that will fit into that? These are not all private enterprise. A lot of the geopark agencies are supported by levy. They either have staff working for them or, I mean, I can think of many of them actually.
Through you, Madam Chair, to Madam Mayor. It's inevitable that I think we're going to come up against these type of models somewhere along any one of our tourism development initiatives, as they are very important to the overall, I think, ecosystem that is tourism, whether it's this not-for-profit or another a conservation entity. If we look to re-engage Niagara Benchlands Destination Development Fund and bring that recommendation before council, I think for further clarity, we'll need to do a bit more of a dive on what we could strategically fund, I think, that's outside the levy support or how it directly enhances our community. For example, our participation was at the Balls Falls Thanksgiving Festival as part of the Niagara Benchlands Destination Development Fund. We were actually able to activate, thanks to that partnership, in a footprint that was about, I don't know if you all had a chance to, there was a historical designation that day, but we took over a massive corner of that park. We were able to activate a poorhouse with our local partners, who also were then in turn allowed to create an incremental revenue opportunity over and above their cellar door and business opportunities, not to mention all of our local other businesses who have, small cottage industries, like our local artisans who may not have a brick and mortar store. We were also able to support their on-site economic activity as well as a result of our partnership. I also do have to say that the Niagara Peninsula Conservation Authority doesn't only support us in these activations. We've been fortunate to bring media delegations to their sites free of charge, which has been an incredible opportunity for us to show these ecotourism and heritage assets. They've also supplied, staff time and other energy and resources and knowledge sharing to also help us develop our tourism strategy, as well as activate on those plans as well. So those strategic partnerships, again, they might be non-traditional, Madam Mayor, but we do need to find, I think, a home where we can still continue to support them. Again, maybe not monetary, but we will have to come down that road because they are vital to our ongoing economic growth and our destination development overall.
That's great. Thank you very much. Thank you, Madam Chair.
And seeing no other people in the queue, I have a motion moved by Councillor Reimer that committee receive and file for information report EDC 09-25 and the associated presentation regarding the 2024 Economic Development and Tourism Year in Review. I will now ask our Legislative Committee Coordinator to open the vote. Deanna?
Thank you, Chair. That vote is now open. And Councillor Renjima, your vote, please.
In favor, thank you.
In favor, thank you. And that vote is closed and it carries.
Thank you very much. We are now going to consider item 7.2.4, Report EDC-12-25, regarding the Museum Advisory Committee Annual Update. Unfortunately, our Senior Curator of Museum Operation and Events, Olivia Rosema, is not able to join us this evening. However, Director Diani will comment and introduce it, please.
Thank you, and Chair, and through you to the committee. As just indicated, unfortunately, Ms. Rosema wasn't feeling well, so I had to go home today. So I'm happy to make some introductory comments to the report this evening. But of course, I do want to personally welcome committee member Ruth Smith to the chambers this evening. So welcome, Ruth. Thank you for being here tonight, as well as I know some of the other committee members are watching online tonight. So since 1953, volunteers have been at the heart of the Lincoln Museum and Cultural Center. When it first opened as the Jordan Historical Museum of the 20, community members and forward-thinking residents came together to preserve the unique history of the region, knowing it would strengthen the health and vibrancy of the community for the future. That same spirit of volunteerism continues today through the Museum Advisory Committee. Our committee members support everything we do, including helping at events and programs, sharing their skills as local historians, and offering their time and expertise in fundraising. They bring a wide range of knowledge and professional experience, offering valuable perspectives that strengthen the museum's work. In 2024, the committee met regularly and worked through two subcommittees focusing on fundraising, revenue development, collections, and exhibits. They created sponsorship tools, advanced a membership drive, contributed research and local knowledge to improve exhibits, and served as ambassadors at major community events. Looking forward in 2025, they have also struck a working group to help guide the development of the museum's next 5-year strategic plan, ensuring the museum continues to grow in a way that reflects the needs and priorities of the community it serves. In closing, the Museum Advisory Committee continues to play an important role in providing advice and community-based perspectives that help shape the programs, exhibits, and strategic direction of the Museum and Cultural Center. The committee's work supports the advancement of Council's priorities, and the museum's mission is to serve as an inclusive and engaging cultural resource for the community. So from both myself and the museum team, I want to personally thank the Advisory Committee for their hard work and dedication, not only in the museum and Cultural Center, but of course to the community at large. So without you, the successes we saw in 2024 would not have been possible. So thank you. Both Director McCain are here to answer any questions you may have. And thank you, Chair. Back over to you.
Thank you very much, Director Deanne. And I'm one of the council members on that committee, as is Councillor Mikulik. And I just want to reiterate the phenomenal work that's happening at the museum. And it's a lot of exciting projects and things happening. And for anyone in this room or out in the public, if you don't have a museum membership yet, you should get one. It is well worth the price. Do we have any questions from committee regarding that report? Mayor Easton, please go ahead.
Madam Chair, the question that I have is, with the staff that we have, are we going to be able to maintain the pace? Because in since we've opened the new museum, there certainly has been a tremendous effort being put forward in so many non-traditional areas, and there's some excellent feedback that's coming back from the public. They're coming from all over the place. So how are we surviving with I know we have talent, but the numbers are the thing now. What do you think, Mr. Deanne? You're in charge now.
So, Chair, through to the Mayor and Council. Madam Mayor, I know the committee and the staff at the museum are doing a fantastic job and have a fulsome work plan for 2025. So I have no concerns or hesitations that things won't be progressing to the level that we have been progressing. I think when we had our workshop here in the development of our new strategic plan, a lot of key elements and perfect ideas that were brought forth are going to be making its way into that plan. And so I'm very confident of what the future holds. It's really about taking the museum to the next level, and I'm confident that staff will be able to do that, Madam Mayor.
Well, it certainly is meeting all of our expectations and beyond. Thank you very much for that. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Sorry. So there are no further questions in the queue. So I now have a motion moved by Councillor Mikulik that committee receive and file for information report EDC-12-25, the Museum Advisory Committee Annual Update. I will now ask our Legislative Committee Coordinator to open that vote.
Thank you, Chair. That vote is now open. And Councillor Majima, may I have your vote?
I'm in favor, thank you.
In favor, thank you.
I didn't vote. I am in favor.
And that vote is now closed, and that carries. Thank you.
Sorry about that. We will now consider item 7.2.5, report PD-15-25 regarding the Heritage Advisory Committee Annual Update. The Director of Planning and Development will provide introductory comments. Director Bruder, please go ahead.
Through you, Madam Chair, basically the purpose of this report is just to provide committee with just a summary highlighting the accomplishments of the Heritage Advisory Committee. As you can see, there are a lot of significant things that were accomplished by the committee in terms of some community events, drawing some awareness to heritage resources, looking at some of the work that the committee did as well, some of the research projects and work that they really took it upon themselves to complete, to work towards keeping the work plan going from a designation perspective. There's a lot of work, a lot of liaison with property owners required to accomplish those things. So again, this is just a summary to show all the great work that the Heritage Committee has done. I'll keep my comments very brief, but I'm happy to address any questions that council may have. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Director Bruder. Do we have any questions from committee? Councillor Timmers, please go ahead.
Thank you very much. Not a question, but as somebody who's been on the Heritage Committee for 11 years, I have to make this comment because it was something that happened at the last meeting that we'd never seen before. We actually had two different sets of homeowners that came to our meeting requesting designation, and it was fantastic. So that was a result of the letters that Ms. Coquiera had sent out to all of the property owners in the different priority lists, and that kind of is getting some attention, and people are understanding understanding the value of designating their homes. So that was a really interesting meeting to have homeowners coming and approaching the Heritage Committee and asking for designations. So I was really pleased to see that. And I want to thank Ms. Coquiera for her support on that committee and for her efforts in making that happen. And also, I can't not ignore Director Bruder as well. He's been a huge support to us. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Timmers. Mayor Easton, please go ahead.
Madam Chair, I wish to speak to as well to the issue of maturity of this committee. It really is at a point now, we had the situation this year where a council really needed to pull up its own bootstraps to determine whether or not we were going to support the position that had been taken by the committee. And they had taken the correct direction. We were able to understand with their assistance and with the help of an external expert why the decision needed to be made as it was. I feel that that was really a watershed moment. And they've done some great work and really a pile of work, a pile of projects. And it's so great to move around the community and see the influence of many of the interpretive plaques. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Mayor Easton. Councillor Miklick, please go ahead.
Thank you very much. In this report, I think page 4 and 5, there's a Heritage Conservation District plan. Can I get a little bit more info on that? Like as far as what, when I read it, it's following the completion in 2024, community engagement is scheduled to commence in the fourth quarter of 2025. This outreach will inform the development of the Heritage Conservation District plan and guidelines, which are tentatively slated to proceed in 2026, subject to budgetary. Can I get some clarification on what that exactly means as far as, are we moving forward that? Are we looking at that? Like what does that paragraph mean?
Through you, Madam Chair. Sure, Councillor, I can help clarify for you. So if you'll recall, when we brought that initial study forward for council, that was to identify, was there feasibility of looking at a heritage conservation district within that core area, downtown Beamsville on King Street there within the urban area. And the result of that was, yes, there was definitely feasibility. We looked at the non-designated properties, we looked at some of the features, the characteristics of the corridor. But when we went through that process, it wasn't just council's input, but also input from some of the residents at some of the engagement sessions that we had, is that, we have to be mindful of certain things, of the ability for residents to maintain their properties, to upkeep their properties if they want to do certain things to their properties. Sometimes I think there's a little bit of angst in that this will require a whole heritage permit process that could be very onerous for homeowners. So really what we're trying to do is before we go forward with an actual policy set, because that's the next step, to actually establish the Heritage Conservation District, go through that study and actually iron out a policy framework and criteria for permit applications and things like that. We wanted to do some further outreach specific to the property owners in the study area to get more insight in terms of how we scope this. I think we said during the last undertaking, there are a lot of different ways to look at this, a lot of different ways in terms of what we want to achieve. So again, we want to strike that balance between achieving what we want and preserving the features of the corridor, while at the same time trying to not make things too onerous or too complicated for the property owners in the area. So that's what we want to do later this year before we engage next year in the full-on policy formation for that district.
Okay, thank you. I just want to make sure that people in the area are aware of what's going on. It's still on, it's still going on. And, you know, that's, yeah, it hasn't really been talked a whole lot lately, and I want to make sure it's still on the table. Thank you.
Thank you very much. There being no further questions, I have a motion moved by Councillor Timmers. The committee receive and file for information Report PD-15-25 regarding the Heritage Advisory Committee Annual Update. I will now ask our Legislative Committee Coordinator to open that vote.
Thank you, Chair. That vote is now open. And Councillor Renjima, your vote, please.
In favor, thank you.
In favor? Thank you, and that vote is now closed, and that carries.
Thank you. As there are no further reports for the Planning and Economic Development Committee agenda, I will ask the Legislative Committee Coordinator to transition to our next committee agenda.
Thank you, Chair. I'll be moving the gavel to Councillor and Chair Miklik to assume the chair at this time for the Community Services and Infrastructure Committee agenda.
Okay, we ready? All right, perfect. Thank you very much. Community Services and Infrastructure Committee agenda. We will now begin the Community Services and Infrastructure Committee agenda. I'm going to start with some news. I'm going to start with a key member of our team, some news regarding our, valued member of our team who the CAO is going to share some words as far as the future for this member.
Through you, Mr. Chair, and thanks for the opportunity. And I know Lori hates this, but I will probably embarrass her a bit. I know we've exchanged a few emails, so maybe a few tears as well while we're at it. But I did want to take the opportunity, to highlight Lori. How do you put 13 years into, kind of words? 13 years of heart and dedication, and the impact you've truly had on the town of Lincoln. And so I think I share your director's thought and everyone around this particular table. You've given so much to our community. You've helped it grow. You've helped us grow. You've forged relationships and partnerships, Lori. And you did that with care and compassion. I know we shared, my youngest daughter, Charlotte, says to me, she learned so much and had a rites of passage, in her summer camps at Jordan and Fleming. And a lot of that was made special by you and the team, but you leading that team. And so you've been an invaluable piece of our team. Here, we'll miss you. Our loss is Niagara Falls' gain. Gonna have to smack CAO Burgess upside the head for taking yet another one of our staff. They are lucky to have you. Best of luck on this next chapter. And like I said, the warmth I think you bring to every interaction is something that will be very hard to replace for us. And it won't be replaced. And you'll always be remembered. And you told me you're going to be driving past the building every day, so I don't know if that's a sign of you coming in and having a coffee, or you just kind of waving really quickly as you drive by. But you're going to stay with this organization long after you move on. So thank you for me, and I know I speak for all of CLT and council.
Thank you very much, Mr. CEO. I just, some words I may add is people come, people go. It's not often you hear words like that about an employee that moves on. The only thing I would say is, should you have any concerns, or if you find out in Niagara Falls the grass is spray painted green, I'm sure that you'd be more than welcome back. Those would be my comments. So, and I don't say that about just anybody or everybody, so.
He doesn't.
I'll keep it short. Item 8.1, delegations. We have no delegations. 8.2, reports. We will now consider item 8.21, report CS 0525 regarding the Age-Friendly and Active Community Service Advisory Committee Annual Update. The Director of Public Works will provide comments. Dave Graham. Director Dave Graham, please go ahead.
Thank you, through Mr. Chair and members of committee. So the report before you this evening is to provide an update on the Age-Friendly and Active Community Advisory Committee. The report is for information purposes, highlighting committee's accomplishments and upcoming projects. You'll notice that the report highlights some of the great events happening across the community, and these are all led by the committee, such as bike rodeos that occurred at local schools in all areas of the town, the Slow Roll event, and the Seniors Showcase, to name a few. Staff would like to thank the committee members for their ongoing commitment, engagement, and passion and all that they are doing for the community. That's much appreciated. And I'd also like to acknowledge and thank our committee staff liaisons here this evening, both Lori and Ashley, for their ongoing support and dedication that they provide to the committee as well. And with that, if anyone has any questions, we're here to answer those. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Dave. Do members of the committee have any questions, comments? Mayor Easton, go ahead.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. My question revolves around the impact that the bike rodeos could potentially have on more children riding to school. And since I don't know, I know this was very popular, it was very well attended this year, but I'm very interested to know whether there's a way to expand that, and I'm not sure who to direct that question to.
I'll put that question in Director Dave Graham. He's in charge of sidewalks and roads. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thanks, Mayor, for your question. I think, this is something we do want to chat more about with the committee and have the committee's input as well. The ones that just occurred recently were very successful in, educating children, getting the word out, but it's definitely something we want to build on when we talk about, all forms of sort of active transportation for kids, crosswalks, things like that. So it's definitely something that we are going to be building on as we move forward.
Okay, the slow roll, I think there were a number of competitions, different things that were going on, so the numbers weren't as large as they were anticipating, but the intention is such a, really a very delightful one in terms of taking groups through the different trail systems that we have. And I wondered if there was a possibility that something like that could be done more than once in a year, depending on the seasons.
Through you, Mr. Chair, to the mayor, absolutely, we can take a look at that to see how we want to, promote that more. It is a really good opportunity to, showcase all of our facilities, parks, all the trail connections, and it's really good to, have more people involved if we can and try and promote that further. And, maybe it's, like you say, more than once a year, we take a look at that.
Okay, the last question that I have, Mr. Chairman, is really, I just want to acknowledge Mr. Midges. George is here tonight. I believe he's still the chair. And the fact that he and one of the other members of the committee come to the seniors event. It's a really good place to showcase what's going on with this committee, and it's very positive in the sense that I do think that many of the seniors are interested in what is happening, although I'm not too sure how many of them ride bikes. But the connection is there. There's no question about that, and maybe that can be even broadened in the future. But thank you very much, George, for the work that you do. You've been on this committee for a while, and obviously it's making an impact. Thank you. Thanks, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Brunei.
Thank you, Chair Michalek. So my question is, back in, I guess it was late 2022, and then council brought some reports through in 2023, we used to have two distinct different committees. There was age-friendly and there was active transportation. And so legislative services brought some things forward, and now this committee has merged. So it is doing both under this committee. So my question is, as a Ward 2 councillor, I get from time to time, emails sent to Councillor Patrieve and I with regards to someone that might be legally blind and is having issues navigating sidewalks because of brush and maintenance. We get during COVID, we get a lot of emails with regards to the intersection at King Street and Ontario Street, which are regional roads, and we now see that improvements are being made in terms of the intersection and walkability for seniors. So my question through you, Chair Michalek, to staff is, when these things come forward from residents that might be passed through a council representative, a councillor representative, does that get funneled through to this committee, which not only handles active transportation but also handles age-friendly? I'm just trying to understand how things flow so that this committee is very well aware of what might be happening in terms of accessibility and in terms of these issues for some of our residents. I'm fully aware, and I see these committee members out at every function involving road reconstruction. They're there advocating on behalf of the community through the active transportation lens. My question is, with this merger, how the age-friendly component of this committee is actually functioning.
Director Dave, do you want to start us off on that?
Yeah, sure. Through Mr. Chair, to the councillor, I'll take a stab at the question or the answer, I should say. I mean, what we're trying to do a lot more with the committee is bring the committee updates on what we're doing in terms of our work plans, as it relates to, construction, road maintenance, pressures we're seeing where we need to invest in, like you were saying, better crossings, making our crossings more accessible, all in partnership with the region. So we are trying to have a lot more collaboration in that direction. I know this past year we've actually had the region come to committee meetings, trying to have that collaboration with the region, have the region talk about what they're doing, allow the committee to have input and feedback to the region and what they're seeing in our community and hearing. So we are trying to build in a lot more of a regional connection to the committee as well. So those would be a few comments I would say in that regard in terms of keeping the committee informed at those meetings and listening to anything the committee is bringing forward from what they're hearing from different residents out there.
Thank you, Dave. Our CAO is going to add to that as well.
Through Mr. Chair, maybe just a couple of comments, and I know I've had conversations with George that the mandate of this committee is both age-friendly and having that active lens. And I think sometimes that's just a reminder we all need to have when we're looking at different issues. We also then have accessibility. And so sometimes I think it's just that connection, communication, and ensuring we're looking at things with all those lenses. We don't always know when things come in. Are we talking age-friendly? Are we talking active transportation? Or are we talking accessibility? And I think it just behooves us to continue to have those types of conversations. I know George has an issue, he'll reach out to me or other staff. Does it always fit, I think, in the box of what we're looking to deal with? No, and I see George chuckling because I don't think often it does. It's just about us figuring that out. But I think as we look at all of our committees, Councillor, towards the end of the term and into next term, it's something that, we can explore. And if we go back to a different model or if we explore something different, I think that's something that next term will be up to council to determine. But I think it just goes back to us continuing to have that communication and that integration if and where possible.
So Chair Michalak, if I
Counselor,
could.
go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. So I appreciate those comments, CEO Kirkopoulos. I asked the question not because I'm trying to be critical of anything. I asked the question because I think your response is very accurate, and I continually ask myself when I get a response, like I'm the conduit, we're all the conduits as councillors and mayors for the residents to bring some of their concerns forward. So, I bring those forward. I look at Councillor Rinjima up there. She sits on the Joint Advisory Accessibility Committee. So I always try to do my best to make sure that Diane is included in those emails, so she's aware of it, so she can be dealing with, Donna or whoever she needs to bring in. But I look and I reflect and I'm going, well, maybe I should be bringing, Chair Midges into the email thread. So I just asked that question because I just don't know how it's working. And if there's issues or there's shortfalls, hopefully we're all, adult enough that we can be working on this to improve it collectively. That's why I asked the question. Thank you, Chair.
No, thank you. I see nobody else. There being no further discussion, I have a motion moved by Councillor Brunet that committee receive and file for information report CS-05-25 regarding Lincoln's Age-Friendly and Active Community Advisory Committee Annual Update. I will now ask our Legislative Committee Coordinator to open up the vote.
Thank you, Chair. That vote is now open. Councillor Rinjima, your vote, please.
In favor, thank you.
In favor, thank you. And that vote is now closed and it carries.
Perfect. And again, thank you, George, for all you do throughout the year. You keep us informed, you send us emails, what's going on. You stuck through this meeting right to the end and probably are upset that I didn't. You left me right at the tail end. Probably wished I would have changed the order of the agenda, but no, it's appreciated. Perfect. Okay, confidential items, we have none. Committee remarks, do we have any committee remarks? Seeing none, item 11, last one, adjournment. There being no further business, I call this meeting adjourned at 8:42 p.m. Thank you very much for everybody that stayed in attendance. Your dedication to the community and to these meetings is appreciated. Thank you.